Our next broadcast was the brainchild of none other than Orson Welles. Welles had already worked extensively in radio drama, playing the title character in The Shadow for a year, and directing a 7-part adaptation of Victor Hugo's Les Mis, both for the Mutual Broadcasting System. In 1938, he was offered a chance to direct his own weekly, hour-long radio series. Radio Guide initially mentioned the series' debut as Mercury Theater, before later listing it as the Mercury Theater on the Air, right now on HOJO Radio.
Theater on the Air. Columbia Broadcasting System brings you the 15th program in its weekly dramatic series featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air, the brilliant producing company which has been acclaimed by critics throughout the nation for giving to radio the same new stimulus they brought to Broadway. This evening, our play is an adaptation of a modern classic, Booth Tarkington 17, with Orson Welles in the part of William Sylvanus Baxter. But first, a word from the director of the Mercury Theater, the writer, star, and producer of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
No man can explain the mystery and misery of being 17. That period which is almost a full stop in the involved sentence of a man's life. When every man's universe has growing pains, and every man is his own Hamlet. Booth Tarkington has left us a perspective of this sharp condition of human agony, so true and brutal and beguiling that posterity will understand William Sylvanus Baxter long after a new and easy world has forever abolished the institution of adolescence.
My name's Parcher, Henry Parcher. I live on Maple Street, number 42. Wife and one daughter, May, 18 years old. On one side of us is Doc Watson's house, vacant now. On the other is George Baxter's, Mr. and Mrs. and 2 children. Little girl about 10, I forget her name. Boy Willie, 17. Just now we've got a visitor, a friend of May's staying with us. Lola Pratt. Talks baby talk. Well, I guess we can stand it for a weekend. Anyway, the young folks don't stay around the house these days. In this town, they spend most of their time at the Main Street Pharmacy.
Hi, Ray.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, man. How's Vic?
Oh, nothing new. Town's dead.
Well, Mr. Baxter, what'll it be?
Make it a banana split, Ray.
Yours, Mr. Bullitt?
Same.
Wow. The boys must be flesh today.
Oh, we got enough. Let me call you sweetheart. Love, always love. Why can't songwriters write something about something else?
They will. I heard May Parcher has come back to town yesterday.
Well, let her for all I care.
Well, they say she's brought a girl to visit her. Said she was a regular ring-dinger.
What if she is? Makes little difference to me, I guess.
Oh, no, it don't. You don't take any interest in girls. Oh, no.
No, I do not. I never saw one in my life. I cared whether she lived or died.
Honest? Honest? Is that so?
Yeah, honest. If I could all die, I wouldn't notice.
Oh, I didn't know you felt that way about it, Will. I always thought you were kind of...
Well, I do feel that way about him. You can tell him so for me if you want to.
Say, would you look what's walking down the street? Isn't that May Parcher?
Yeah. Say, who's that with her? Carrying the parasol and the little dog.
So that must be the girl. Isn't she a ring-dinger?
Hey, Will.
Joe, don't you want your splits? To Milady with the little dog. I do not know her name, though it would be the same where roses bloom at twilight and the lark takes his flight. So I will call her Milady. By the sands of the sea, she will always be just Milady to me. William Sylvanus Baxter, Esquire, July 14th. Ye gods.
Willie, Mama wants you.
Oh, go away, Jane.
Willie.
What do you want?
Willie, Mama wants you. Wants to go help Genesis bring some wash tubs home and a tin clothes boiler from the second-hand man store.
What?
She wants you to hurry. And I got some bread and butter and applesauce and sugar for coming to tell you.
Oh, go away, will you, Jane? Go on.
Willie, open the door, please.
All right, Mother. Carry wash tubs. That's a nice thing to ask me to do. Ye gods, you think Joe Bullitt's mother would dare to...
Now, wait, dear. I just want to explain.
Explain, ye gods!
Now, just a minute, Willie. What I wanted to explain was why it's necessary for you to go with Genesis.
Mother, you expect me to walk through the public streets with that awful-looking old colored man?
Well, Genesis isn't old, is he, Mama?
Oh, he is so old. Besides, he's practically in rags, and he doesn't even wear an undershirt.
Now, who on earth minds what Genesis wears or doesn't wear?
Second-hand wash tubs and tin clothes boilers. That's what you want your son to carry through the public streets in broad daylight. Ye gods!
Well, there isn't anybody else. Now, please don't rave so, Willie, and don't say ye gods so much. It really isn't nice. Now, I'm sure nobody will notice
Nobody?
you.
Oh, no. Nobody except the whole town. Why... When there's anything disgusting has to be done in this family, why do I always have to be the one? Mother, why can't Genesis bring the second-hand wash tubs without me? Why can't the second-hand store deliver them? Why
The
can't...
second-hand store doesn't deliver things. And Genesis says he can't possibly carry 2 tubs and a wash boiler himself. Now, I don't like to ask you, but it really isn't much. You and Genesis can just slip up there and...
Just slip up there. Ye gods!
Oh, really, Willie, it isn't worth your making all this fuss
Oh,
about.
no, it's nothing. Nothing at all.
And, Willie, dear, on your way downtown, you might tell the tailor to call for your father's full-dress suit. He hasn't worn it in 4 months. It's too tight for him. Needs to be altered.
Ye gods, do I have to do everything in this house? Ye gods!
Mama, what's the matter with Willie?
Well, you see, dear, he's 17.
Land sakes, Mr. William, watch out. You can't see where you're going with that tin boil over your head.
I don't want to see, and I don't want to be seen.
You sure is fixing to get run over.
Well, carry the big tub between us like this, and you can guide me. Now, come on, Genesis. Hey, is that Muddy you're still following us?
Sure is. Clem never stopped following me yet. I reckon it's the followingest dog in the world.
Well, he can... Oh, don't let him follow through the streets. Not a moth-eating mongrel like that. It's bad enough to be seen carrying all this junk.
Man sakes, ain't nobody can tell who you are with that wash tub over your face.
Genesis, make that dog scat,
Ain't
please.
nobody to make that dog scat. I ain't had it more than 2 weeks, but I don't believe President of the United States make that dog quit following.
Well, keep him as far back as you can so people won't know it's us he's following.
Go on, Clem. Stay back, dog. Hey, careful, Mr. William. He's crossing the street.
You tell me if anything's coming.
Oh, well, road's clear. Come on.
All right. Where roses bloom at twilight, and the lark takes his flight by the sands of the sea, she'll always be...
Why let you reciting this, William?
Oh, just something I made up.
It sounds kind of like a poem.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Lacy, the funny laundry must see the something must be too. No, they'll hear you.
Hey, what's behind this?
There's 2 young ladies. One's got yellow hair and kind of pretty. Carrying a funny little dog. Looks like a caterpillar. expect Clem could eat him in one swallow.
Now, did that Floppy must have $1 nickel rotten.
Now she got that little bird walking.
Hurry, Genesis, hurry.
Hey, what you in such a rush for? I got plenty of time.
How close are they, Genesis?
And ladies, about 20 feet. Mr. Williams, stop pulling on this tub. My handles most wore through my hide.
Molly, you better not let Floppy near that awful-looking dog.
Little dog better not mix with old man Clem.
Doggy must belong to Sonny Laundryman. Stay near me, precious Floppy.
Hurry up.
You stop that horrible dog, or I'll have you arrested.
Yeah, precious darling, come to Mama. Is he all right, Lola?
Isn't Pickle hard to beat him so sloppy? Hey, you!
Bump me, ma'am?
Where's that other laundryman? It's his dog, isn't it?
Laundry, ma'am? What? He ain't no...
I'd like to get my hands on him. I'd have him arrested. Tom, precious. Don't Mom make them all white and precious floppy.
Oh, Miss Willie. Miss Willie. You come behind that hedge now. He's gone. We better be getting along home with these tubs.
Oh, Genesis. Isn't she wonderful? Hey, Genesis, did you ever see anyone like her, Genesis? Huh? Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that I love you. Let the love light linger in your eyes so true. Let me call you. Isn't that awful? When I said a week ago this was my house, it was a gross exaggeration. My daughter's guest, Miss Lola Pratt, now occupies the house. She and a pack of boys that follow her like flies after honey. The worst of the bunch is that Baxter boy, the one with the cracked tenor. Every night he sits on my porch in a full-dress suit. It's pretty big for him, and I'll bet it's his old man's. While I lie here on my bed, which is about all the space left me in my own house, trying to sleep, but it's no use. I used to think the katydids were the dullest insects you had to listen to on a summer night, but that was before Miss Pratt moved in on us.
Willie, you don't have to be so quiet just because you're so indifferent.
Oh, but I'm not indifferent, Miss Pratt. Honest, I'm not.
Oh, but Josie Joe says you're indifferent. Ichabod Baxter is indifferent, isn't he, sweetest Floppet? Isn't he a mean old wicked thing, precious Floppet?
Well, I suppose I am indifferent to most girls.
Lola forgives him if Ichabod Baxter make imitation of Darlin' Floppet again. Darlin' Floppet, look.
Oh, my soul.
More. Again, Ichabod Baxter. How did he learn such marvelous imitations of Darlin' Floppet? He ought to go on the big stage and be a really actor. Wouldn't he, Darlin' Floppet? He could make millions and millions of dollars. Couldn't he, Darlin' Floppet?
Oh, I hardly would care to adopt the stage for a career. Would you?
It's my dream.
It was wonderful of you to say that to me. I shall never forget it. You would make a glorious actress. Oh, for heaven's sake.
Huh? Ichabod Baxter times slumbox us, Darlin' Floppet. Naughty Floppet.
No, I mean it, but
But what comes?
what do you think about actors and actresses making love to each other on the stage? Do you think they have to really feel it, or do they just pretend?
Well, sometimes one way, sometimes the other.
Yes, but how can they pretend like that? Don't you think love is a sacred thing, Miss Pratt?
Yes?
I do. I think love is the most sacred thing there is. I don't mean some kinds of love. I mean real love. You take some people. I don't believe they even know what real love means. They talk about it maybe, but they don't understand it. Love is something nobody can understand unless they feel it. And if they don't understand it, they don't feel it. Don't you think so?
Yes? You talk so beautiful.
Love is something nobody can ever have but one time in their lives, and if they don't have it then, why, probably they never will. Don't you think so?
Yes?
I think real love is sacred, don't you?
Yes?
Don't you think love is the most sacred thing there is? That is, if it's real love?
Yes?
I do. I'm glad you feel like that, because I think real love is the kind nobody could have but just once in their lives, because the real love a man feels for a girl and a girl for a man, if they really love each other, and you look at a case like that, of course they would both love each other. It wouldn't be real love. Well, what I say is, if it's real love, well, it's sacred, because I think that kind of love is always sacred. Don't you think love is sacred if it's the real thing?
Yes, Tickle Boy Baxter. Do flop it again. Say flop it.
He is Floppet.
Jane.
Oh, do I have to practice much longer, Mother?
Until your hour's up. Now try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
You've got to do something about that child. I cannot stand it.
Oh, you've been gone all morning, Willie. I thought your father mentioned at breakfast that he expected you to put in at least 2 hours a day on your geometry.
That's neither here nor there. Mother, I just want to say this. If you don't want to do something about Jane, I will. Just look at her. I ask you. That's the way she looked half an hour ago out on the public sidewalk in front of the house when I came by here with Miss Pratt. That was pleasant, wasn't it, to be walking with a lady on the public street and meet a member of my family looking like that? Oh, lovely.
Now, Jane doesn't look so disreputable. Come, Willie, you're interrupting her piano lesson.
Wait till I tell you the rest. Then she hollered at me, Mother. She hollered, "Oh, Willie!" She hollered, "Oh, Willie!" at me. Anybody'd think I was about 6 years old. She hollered, "Oh, Willie," and she rubbed her stomach and slushed applesauce all over her face, and she kept hollering, "Willie," with her mouth full. "Willie, look, good bread and butter and applesauce and sugar. I bet you wish you had some. Willie!"
Well, you did eat some the other day. You ate a whole lot. You eat it every chance you get.
Now, you hush up. She kept following us, Mother. She followed us, hollering, "Willie," till it's a wonder we didn't go deep. And just look at her, Mother. I don't see how you can stand it to have her going around like that and people knowing it's your child. Why, she hasn't got enough on.
For this very hot weather, I really don't think people notice or care.
Notice? I guess Miss Pratt noticed. Hot weather's no excuse for outright obesity. I ask you to look at her back. You can see her spinal cord.
Spinal column, Willie.
Well, what do I care which is it? People aren't supposed to go around with it exposed, whichever it is, with applesauce on their ears.
Well, there is not.
Look, I just ask you to look. That's the sight I have to meet when I'm out walking with Miss Pratt. She asked me who it was, and Mother, I wish you'd seen her face. She wanted to know who that curious child was, and I'm glad you didn't hear the way she said it. "Who is that curious child?" she said, and I had to tell her it was my sister. I had to tell Miss Pratt it was my only sister.
Willie, who is Miss Pratt? I don't think I've ever heard
Willie's masked on her, and she wears 4 side curls. One almost came off. She's visiting Miss May Parcher. But the Parchers are awful tired of her. They wish she'd go home, but they don't like to tell her so.
Now, if you don't punish her, it's because you've lost your sense of duty.
Now, wait, Willie. Jane doesn't mean to hurt your feelings.
My feelings? You stand there and allow her to speak as she did of one of the noblest. One of the noblest.
Oh, Jane didn't mean anything. Now, don't get so upset about things, Willie.
Upset, ye gods!
What made you say that? Where did you hear such things?
Well, I was there.
You were where, Jane?
At the Parchers.
Oh, I see.
Yesterday afternoon, Miss Parcher had the Sunday school class for lemonade and cookies.
Well, did you hear Miss Parcher
No,
say?
I ate too many cookies, I guess, maybe. Anyways, Miss Parcher said I better lay down.
Lie down.
Yes'm. On the sofa in the library. And Mrs. Parcher and Mr. Parcher came in there and sat down after a while. And it was kind of dark, and they didn't hardly notice me. And Mr. Parcher said since Miss Pratt came to visit, there wasn't anywhere he could go because Willie Baxter and Johnny Watson and Joe Bullitt and Miss Pratt were always arguing something about love. It made him just sick at the stomach. And he said Willie was the worst.
What?
And he said he couldn't sit even in the library, but he had to hear either Willie Baxter or Joe Bullitt or somebody or other arguing about love. He said, Mama, he said he couldn't stand those...
Jane, you mustn't say such things.
Well, I didn't, Mama. Mr. Parcher said it. He said you couldn't stand those...
Jane, no matter what he said, you mustn't repeat.
But I'm not. I only said Mr. Parcher said he couldn't stand those... But, Mama, how can I tell you what he said?
Hush. You must never, never use such a terrible and wicked word.
I won't, Mama. Oh, I know I'll say word instead. Won't that be all right?
I suppose so.
Well, Mr. Parcher said he couldn't stand those word boys. That sounds all right, doesn't it, Mama?
I suppose so.
Well, they kind of talked along. Mr. Parcher said when he was young, he wasn't any such a word fool as these young word fools were. He said in all his born days, Willie Baxter was the wordest fool he ever saw.
That was very unjust and very wrong of Mr. Parcher.
Mrs. Parcher said he oughtn't to say word, Mama. She said, hush, hush to him, Mama. He talked like this, Mama. He said, I'll be worded if I stand it. And he kept getting crosser and crosser, and he said, word, word, word.
There, that will do, Jane. We'll go on with your practicing. Now try that exercise again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
Jabber, 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 jabber. On and on. That's the way these young folks talk. Same things over every night like finger exercises. No sense, no rhyme, no reason. Just jabber, 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 jabber. Wonder what they find to talk about.
Genesis, I want to ask you something.
What's that, Mr. Willie? Seems like this ice cream ain't never gonna freeze.
Genesis, how old were you when you were married?
Well, sir, I had 3 children when I was 20. I had 2 when I was 18.
You did?
Go away, Jane. Genesis, how old were you when you had the first one?
I was just your age, Miss William. Yes, sir, I was 17.
Oh, Genesis, what became of the one that was born when you were 17?
Well, Miss Willis, I never did know.
Was it a boy or a girl?
It seemed like it must have been a boy, Miss Jane.
Well, did it die?
I think it must be dead by now. A good many of them dead. What I know is dead. Yes, I reckon so.
Genesis, how old were you when you were married?
Me? Well, that depends. I recollect I was married once in Louisville.
Well, I heard of people getting married even younger than you were. Yeah, you take India, for instance. Why, they get married in India when they're 12 and even 7 and 8 years old.
Oh, they do not. The mothers and fathers wouldn't let them, and they wouldn't want to anyway.
I suppose you've been to India and know all about it. Well, as a matter of that, there was a young couple got married in Pennsylvania the other day. The girl was only 15 and the man was 16. It was in the papers, and their parents consented and said it was a good thing. And there was a case in Fall River, Massachusetts, where the young man, 18 years old, married a woman 41 years old. It was in the papers, too. And I heard of another case somewhere in Iowa. A boy began shaving when he was 13 and shaved every day for 4 years. Now he's got a full beard, and he's going to get married this year because he's 18 years old. And Joe Bullitt's got a cousin in Iowa that knows about this case. He knows the girl this fellow with the beard's going to marry, and he says he expects it'll turn out the best thing could have happened. And right here in our own county, there were 11 couples married in the last 6 months under 21 years of age.
My goodness, how you collect all them facts, Miss Willie? Land name. What puzzles me is how you remember them after you didn't collect them. If it was me now, I couldn't collect 'em in the first place, and even if I could, it wouldn't be no good to me, 'cause I couldn't recollect 'em.
Well, it isn't so hard if you kind of get the hang of it, Genesis. I always did have a pretty good memory.
Oh, Mama says you're the most forgetful boy she ever heard of. Says you can't remember anything 2 minutes.
Oh, you hush. Genesis, do you remember when you were married? Genesis? Genesis, how'd you feel about it? I mean, were you sort of shaky, for instance? As if you were taking an important step in life?
Let me see. I felt mighty shaky once, I recollect. At the time a man started shooting at me from behind a snake fence.
Shooting at you, Mr. Genesis? What'd you do that for?
Nothing in the wide world. Bound to shoot at somebody, and they pick on me because I was the handiest. Well, ice cream and all fresh. I think I better throw it in the kitchen.
He must have been 16
When, Willie?
when he was married. Things you don't understand. You run in the house. Go on, Jane. Go on.
Between Willie Baxter, Lola Pratt, and the heat, I'm slowly losing my reason. This morning, I discovered my tobacco box behind a bench in the backyard. When I took the lid off the box, I found a faded rose, a girl's silver shoe buckle, a tortoiseshell hairpin, white ribbon faintly smelling of violets, 3 withered 4-leaf clovers, other vegetation now indistinguishable, and a note on lavender paper addressed to Ickle Boy Baxter. What ickle sanity I still have left I owe to the sudden appearance this evening of a small, frank-faced child munching on a piece of bread and butter, applesauce, and powdered sugar.
Mr. Parcher. Mr. Parcher. Good afternoon, Mr. Parcher.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Parcher, my brother Willie's been at your house all afternoon.
I suppose so.
Listen, Mr. Parcher, my brother Willie isn't coming back to your house tonight, but he doesn't know it yet.
What?
Willie isn't going to spend any more evenings at your house at all. He isn't, but he doesn't know it yet.
Are you sure he isn't?
I know he isn't. It's on account of something I told Mama.
Told your mama what?
What you said.
What about?
About Willie. You know.
No, I don't.
It was when I was laying in the library that day of the Sunday school class. You and Mrs. Parcher was talking in there about Miss Pratt and Willie and everything.
Good heavens, did you hear all that?
Yes, I told Mama all what you said.
Murder.
Well, I guess it's good I did because, look, that's the very reason Mama did something, so he can't come anymore except in daytime. But he hasn't found out yet.
Found out what, please?
He hasn't found out he can't come back to your house tonight, nor tomorrow night, nor day after tomorrow night.
Is it because your mama's going to tell him he can't?
No, Mr. Parcher. She just did something.
Huh? What? What'd she do?
Well, it's a secret. Oh, I could tell you the first part of it, up to where the secret begins, I expect.
Do.
Well, it's about something Willie's been wearing. I can't tell you what you were because, well, that's the secret. But he had 'em on him every evening when he came to see Miss Pratt. They belong to Papa, and Papa doesn't know a word about it.
Yeah, I thought he didn't.
Well, one evening Papa wanted to put 'em on. Mama couldn't find 'em, and she rummaged and never did find 'em. Until, don't you believe, I saw Willie inside of 'em only last night. So I told Mama, and she said it had to be a secret. So that's why I can't tell you what they were. Well, this afternoon I was with her in Willie's room, and...
Yes.
Well, there she found them under Willie's window seat, all folded up.
You found what?
Well, I told you it's a secret.
Oh.
So she wrapped the secret up, and we took it to a tailor. And she told him to make it bigger, because then it'll fit Pop again, Mr. Patcher. She said he must let the secret way out. So I guess Willie looked kind of funny in it after it's fixed. And anyway, Mr. Parcher, the secret won't be home from the tailor's for 2 weeks, and maybe by that time Miss Pratt will be gone.
Do you honestly think so?
Well, anyway, Mr. Parcher, Mama said... Well, she said she's sure Willie wouldn't come here in the evening anymore. When you're home, Mr. Parcher, after you've been wearing the secret every night this way, you wouldn't like to come and not have the secret on.
I suppose that's what you meant when you said he wasn't coming back, but didn't know it yet.
Oh, yes, Mr. Parcher.
I know your last name, of course, but I'm afraid I've forgotten your other one.
Well, it's Jane.
Jane, I should like to do something for you.
Oh, that's all right, Mr. Parcher. Well, I guess I'm from home now. Goodbye, Mr. Parcher.
Goodbye, Jane. I'm afraid little Jane has her first beau. A gentleman is going to send her a 5-pound box of candy, and that gentleman's name is Henry Parcher.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in an original adaptation of Booth Tarkington's 17. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Well, we've got still a new boarder at the Parcher house. Beside Lola Pratt and her usual string, there's Joe Bullett's cousin George from out of town. George has an excellent appetite. He's going out today with a crowd on a picnic. Well, we'll have one meal in peace.
Rheumatism, how it pains, up and down the system, when it rains,
Oh, boy!
Pass the corn, Johnny.
Hey, I want some of those cucumber pickles.
Say, who's hiding the gravy?
Joe just lost his fork. Got an extra fork, anybody?
Oh, somebody lost his girlfriend. Hey, has anybody seen Willie Baxter's girl?
You think Willie was at a funeral?
hush your mouth.
Joe Bullet looks kind of sick, too. What you moping for, Joe?
Stop teasing him, boy.
Hey, why aren't you sitting next to Lola, Willie?
Dry up, will you? She looks kind of occupied. Joe Cousin's rushing her. Pass the chicken, will you, Manny?
You've had 3 helpings already. Why aren't you eating, Willie?
Oh, 'cause I'm not hungry, that's why.
Me, I can't keep up with Joe's cousin. Look at that George eat.
What'd you have to invite the big lummox for, Joe?
How does I know George was going to hog Lola and eat his fool head off? Oh, look at that goop. I tell you, I'm going to...
Flop it, want to snuggle, Jay, big man? Want to hold it, go flop it, Uncle Georgie?
Why, you bet I do, Lola. Dogs are always crazy about me. Dogs and children. I don't know why it is, but they just take right to little Georgie.
Flop it looks so tootin' tunnin' on Dre Big Enormous Man's lap.
Well, he does look kind of small compared with good old George. Well, I always was a good deal bigger than the fellas I went with. I don't know why it is, but I was always kind of quicker, too, as it were. Take me in an automobile now. I got a racing car home.
Ooh, Georgie can drive like Dre Big Racing Man.
Lola, I'd like to have you see how I handle that little racing car. Girls over home, they say they like to go out with me just to watch the way I handle it. They say it ain't so much just the ride, but more the way I handle that little car. Yes, I don't know why it is, but that's what they say. Oh, pass me more potatoes, Lola.
Ooh, go flop it. Watch Uncle Georgie could eat enormous dinner.
Why, you haven't seen me start. Hey, here, don't take out that pie. I'll finish the platter.
Oh, precious flop it. And Dre Big George eats 3 pieces of pie. And 2 Georgie comes.
Well, I only wish I had something to top it off with, like champagne or ice cream.
How'd you like a smoke, George?
Oh, say, I don't smoke papers and old carpets. Not me.
Oh, but cigarettes so lovely smell. Uncle George made it too little boy for smoking.
Oh, now it's not that, Lola. I only smoke cigars.
Cigars? Oh, splendid. Light one, Uncle George. Light one ever and ever so quick.
Oh, well, yeah, I forgot my cigar case.
Hey, George, here's some cigars. Cuban Sweetheart.
Oh, Cuban Sweetheart. Flop it just thinks. Cuban Sweetheart.
Thanks, Baxter.
Light one. Light one. Look, everybody. Dre Big Man can't be happy unless they have a tobacco smoke. Light it, Georgicum.
Oh, boy, that's good. That's the old stuff. That's what I was looking for.
Watch, everybody. Now, Georgicum. Dre Big enormous puffs. That's it. Now, another one. Another one.
Sure. Caesar,
These are fine.
Another one, Georgicum. Great big, enormous puff. Puff hard, Georgicum. Another one.
Just a second,
Don't stop, Georgicum. Make great big puffs for Precious Floppet.
But I can't. I guess I better go outside for a minute. Just a minute.
What's wrong with George? Is he sick?
See how pale he got?
Come on, Willie. We got to take care of him. Maybe he needs a doctor.
Ah, you take care of him. The big lummox is your cousin.
Echo Boy Baxter.
Yes, Lola?
Come here. You don't ever talk to little Lola. So indifferent today.
Well, Lola, gee whiz,
Then let's talk about it. Here, take Precious Floppet. Hold him nice and cozy. Floppet love old friend best, don't you, Precious? Floppet love little boy Baxter better than anyone else. Listen, Floppet.
Well, I guess the happy day's in sight. Saturday night, we're giving a farewell party at the Parcher household for Lola Pratt, our weekend guest, who stayed for the summer. Never has a party meant so much to me as this one. Farewell party, farewell Lola, farewell silly boys, mixed quartets, farewell Willie Baxter, farewell party.
Father.
Yes, Willie?
Dear me, Willie, you do look pale. You better rest up for the party Saturday.
Father. Father.
I suppose you got Miss Pratt safely home from church. She might have been carried off by footpads if you three boys hadn't been along to take care of her, huh?
Father, I have come to...
What on earth's the matter with you?
Father, I have come to place before you something I think it's your duty as my father to undertake, and I have thought over this step before laying it before you.
My soul.
At my age, there's some things that ought to be done and some things that ought not to be done. If you ask me what I thought ought to be done, there's only one answer. When anybody as old as I am has to go out among other young men his own age that already got one, like anyway half of them have, who I go with, and their fathers have already taken such a step because they felt it was the only right thing to do, because at my age and the young men I go with's age, it is the only right thing to do, because that is something nobody could deny. At my age, I have thought over this step because there comes a time to every young man when they must lay a step before their father before something happens that they would be sorry for. I have thought this undertaking over, and I am certain it would be your honest duty...
My soul. I thought I knew you pretty well, but you talk like a stranger to me. Now, what's all this? What do you want?
A dress suit.
A dress suit? Well, I'm glad you're talking about something, because I honestly thought it must be too much sun.
Father, I got to have one.
Got you? At your age, I thought I was lucky if I had any suit that was fit to be seen in. You're too young, Willie. I don't want you to get anything like that on such stuff on your mind, and if I have my way, you won't have a dress suit for 4 years more, anyhow.
Father, I got to have one. I got to have one right away. I don't ask you to have it made or to go to expensive tailors, but there's plenty of good ready-made ones that only cost about $40. They're advertised in the paper. Father, wouldn't you spend just $40? I'll pay it back when I'm in business. I'll work.
Not the money, son. It's the principle that I'm standing for, and I don't intend...
Father, won't you do it?
No, I will not.
Oh, ye gods!
Oh, poor boy. He won't feel like going to the party in his everyday clothes.
Poor boy, nothing. Think of his coming out here and starting a regular debating society declamation before his mother and father. I guess he can wear the kind of clothes most of the other boys wear. What's the world getting to be like? 17 years old and throws a fit because he can't have a dress suit.
Mother.
My, Willie, dear, you look worn out. What's the matter?
Mother, I want to speak to you.
Well, first you better eat your supper. I left it on the table.
I want to speak to you about something important.
Yes, Willie?
Oh, please send Jane away. I can't talk about important things with a child in the room.
Oh, Mama, do I have to go?
Just a few minutes, dear.
Mother. Mother, I want to ask you please to lend me $3.60.
What for, Willie?
Mother, I just asked you to lend me $3.60.
But what for?
Mother, I don't feel I can discuss it any. I simply ask you, will you lend me $3.60?
I don't think I could, Willie, but certainly I should want to know what for.
Mother, I am going on 18 years of age, and when I ask for a small sum of money like $3.60, I think I might be trusted to know how to use it for my own good without having to answer questions like a child. And after all...
I don't think I ought to, dear, and I'm sure your father wouldn't wish me to unless you tell me what you want it for.
You won't do it.
Well, you see, dear, I'm afraid the reason you don't tell me is because you know that I wouldn't give it to you if I knew what you wanted it for. Now, sit down and eat your supper. You mustn't be late to the party. But, well, Willie, where are you going?
I don't want any supper, and I'm not going to the party.
Well, of all things.
Oh, Mama.
Yes, Jane?
I was hiding behind the door so I could hear everything.
Now, Jane, you know you shouldn't do that.
But, Mama, I had to. I know why Willie asked you for the money. Genesis told me.
Jane, what did Genesis tell you?
First of all, Willie didn't come home today because he was counting knotholes and shingles.
He was what?
Yes'm. Genesis knows all about it. This lumberyard man got into some kind of a fuss because he had bought millions and millions of shingles, Mama, that had too many knots in. And the man don't want to pay for them, or else the store he bought them won't take them back. And they got to prove how many shingles are bad shingles or something. And anyway, Mama, that's what Willie's doing. Every time he comes to a bad shingle, Mama, he puts it somewhere else. And every time he puts 1,000 bad shingles in this other place, they give him 6 cents.
Good gracious.
Oh, but that's nothing, Mama. Just wait till you hear the rest. That part of it isn't anything at all, Mama. You wouldn't hardly notice that part of it if you knew the other part of it, Mama.
Jane.
Yes'm?
I want to know everything Genesis told you, and I want you to tell it as quickly as you can.
Well, I am telling it, Mama. I'm just beginning to tell it. I can't tell it unless there's a beginning, can I?
Try your best to go on, Jane.
Yes'm. Well, Willie needed some money bad, and you and Papa wouldn't give him any. And so he began counting shingles today, because tonight's his night of a party, and he just has to have it.
Well, how did Genesis know that? Did Willie tell Genesis?
Listen, Mama. Genesis knows all about a second-hand store over on the avenue, and it keeps most everything. And Genesis says it's the nicest store. And Genesis says this man is the bargainest man in the whole wide world, Mama. Well, and so this man's name is One-Eyed Belgis, Mama. That's his name, and Genesis says so. One-Eyed Belgis told Genesis that Willie came in there and tried on the coat of one of those waiter suits.
Oh, no.
Yes'm. And One-Eyed Belgis told Willie that suit was worth $14. And Willie said he didn't have any money. Well, and so they bargained and bargained and bargained. And then after they bargained and bargained, One-Eyed Belgis said Willie should give him $3.60 for Willie to pay before he'd get the suit. Well, and so the worst part of it is, Genesis says the suit is haunted.
What?
Yes'm. Genesis says that suit is haunted. Genesis says everybody over on the avenue knows all about that suit. And he says that's why One-Eyed Belgis could never sell it before. Genesis says One-Eyed Belgis tried to sell it to a colored man for $3. The man said he wouldn't put it on for $300. And Genesis says he wouldn't either, because it belonged to a waiter that... Mama, this waiter, he lived over on the avenue. And he took a case knife he sharpened, and he cut off a lady's head with it. And he got hung, Mama. If you don't believe it, you can ask One-Eyed Belgis. I guess he knows.
Hush, hush.
And he sold this suit to One-Eyed Belgis when he was in jail, Mama. He sold it to him before he got hung, Mama.
Hush, Jane.
And he had that suit on when he cut the lady's head off, Mama. And that's why it's haunted. They cleaned it all up except for a few little spots of...
Jane, you must not talk about such things. And Genesis mustn't tell you stories of that sort.
Well, how could he help it if he told me about Willie?
Never mind. Did that crazy child... Did Willie bring that suit into this house?
Yes, Mama.
Well, I'm going right down to Mr. Belgis's. He'll turn back Willie's money or I'll have him arrested.
Arrested? Mama, can I go along?
No, you stay here and finish the dishes. Oh, dear. Jane, yesterday I took your papa's evening clothes back to the tailor to get them pressed, and, well, I guess he must have misunderstood because he took them way in again, and now they're much too tight for Papa. They just about fit Willie, I guess. So there they are, hanging in the hall closet upstairs, all pressed. But don't tell anyone what I said, Jane.
Oh, no, Mama. Willie! Oh,
Magic lanterns, music, summer night, farewell party, farewell summer, farewell Lola Pratt, farewell Lola Pratt.
Lola, I gotta have a dance. Yeah, I got her, Lola.
Little boy Baxter, naughty. Come late to Lola's party. Lola's little dance part all filled up.
I couldn't help it, Lola. Honest, I couldn't, honest.
Sorry. Lola promised boy comes all her dances.
Now, listen just a second, Lola. Hey, Lola, please.
Lola must go. Boy comes waiting for his little partner.
Hey, Johnny, you look here, Johnny. And Joe, you listen too. You both got 7 dances apiece with her. All on account of my getting here early enough. And listen, you got it.
Well, it wasn't because of any such reason. I asked her for mine 2 days ago.
Well, that wasn't fair, was it? Just because I never thought of sneaking in ahead like that, you go and...
Well, you ought to have thought of it. I can't stand here gabbing all night.
Joe, I've done a good many favors for you.
I gotta go and see a man. Now, let me go, Willie.
Oh, Joe.
Somebody I gotta see right away before the next dance begins. Honest, I have.
Oh, ye God. Wait a minute. You gotta give me anyway 2 out of all the dances with her. You heard her tell me yourself that she'd be willing if you or Johnny or...
Well, I only got 5 or 6 with her and a couple of extras. Johnny's got 7.
Listen, Joe, listen. If I'd got 6 regular and 2 extras with Miss Pratt last night and you got here late and it wasn't your fault, I couldn't help being late, could I? It wasn't my fault I was late, I guess, was it? Well, if I was in your place, I wouldn't act the way you and Johnny do. Not in 1,000 years I wouldn't. I'd say, you want a couple of my dances with Miss Pratt, old man? Why, certainly.
Yes, you would.
Oh, now, look here, Joe. Don't you realize this is the very last night of Miss Pratt's going to be in this town?
Well, you bet I do.
Joe, you and I have been friends ever since you and I were boys. Well, when I look back, I expect I've done more favors for you than for anyone else,
Bill, there's other girls here you can get dances with. There's 1 or 2 of them sitting around the yard.
Oh.
You can have a bully time, even if you did come late.
Joe, you gotta give me anyway 1.
Look, sitting yonder over under that tree all by herself. That's a visiting girl named Miss Bo.
Oh, Miss...
She's a little fat, but, well, I bet she's a good dancer. May Parcher says so. She was trying to get me to dance with her myself, but I couldn't, or I wouldn't, or I would have.
No,
I gotta go, Bill. I got to.
No, wait just a minute.
I gotta go. I got to get
Hey!
back.
Oh, no, hey!
Hey, Mother.
Yes, dear?
Look at that Baxter boy. Must have got hold of his father's dress suit again.
Now, how do you know it's his father?
That's a secret between Miss Jane Baxter and myself. Say, that boy's face has more genuine idiocy in it than I have seen around here yet. And I've been seeing some miracles in that line this summer.
He's looking at Lola Pratt.
Yeah, that's the trouble with him. Why doesn't he quit looking at her?
I think probably he feels badly because she's dancing with one of the other boys. Of course, he ought to be dancing with somebody. There are 1 or 2 more girls here than boys. He's the only boy not dancing. I believe I'll... Good evening, William.
Good evening, ma'am.
Don't you want to dance?
Ma'am?
Don't you want to dance? Have you looked around for a girl without a partner?
Girl?
You come with me. I'll fix you up.
But, ma'am,
Miss Bolt, this is Mr. Baxter. He and you both came late, dear, and he hasn't any dances engaged either. So run and dance and have a nice time together.
Well, Miss Bolt. May I have this dance with you, Miss Bolt?
Very pleased to.
Doggone.
Oh, you mustn't be discouraged with yourself, Mr. Baxter.
Yeah.
You know, I've met lots of men that had trouble to get started and turned out to be right good dancers after all. Well, it seems to me we're kind of working against each other.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You kind of let me do the guiding, and I'll get you going fine. No. 1, 2. 1, 2. There. Oh, I just love dancing, don't you, Mr. Baxter?
What? Yeah.
It's a beautiful floor for dancing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just love dancing. Don't you love it, Mr. Baxter?
Yeah.
It's lovely. Oh, dear, I hope they don't play Home Sweet Home very early at parties in this town.
No,
I could keep on like this all night.
I think those musicians would be dead.
Well, let's go out on the porch, Mr. Baxter.
All right.
Oh, just look at those stars. Aren't they just glorious?
Yeah.
You can sit closer. Come over here. You know, we used to dance a lot up at the lake. It's a floor like this is tonight, just about early enough and as nice a floor as I ever danced on. Of course, there weren't so many men like this here tonight, and I must say I am glad to dance with a man again.
My, what a shindig, Mother. Genesis adds just the right touch with that waiter's uniform. I'll bet it's borrowed, too. Well, everyone's having a grand time except that Baxter boy. I've been watching him all evening, and I never saw true misery show plainer. By George, I've begun to feel sorry for him. Can't you trot up someone else so he can get away from that fat girl?
I've tried, and I've tried, and I've tried.
Well, do something. We don't want to find him in the cistern in the morning.
I know. I'll make May and Lola and their partners come and sit in this little circle of chairs here. Then I'll go and bring Willie and Miss Boat to sit with them. I'll give Willie the seat at Lola's left. You keep the chairs and tell Genesis to get busy with the sandwiches.
Naughty Ickle Boy Baxter. Lola's last night and Ickle Boy Baxter flirting. Flirt all night with stray big girl.
Now, Lola, if you'd let me explain,
Lola saw bad boy Baxter under Dre Big Tree flirting with Dre Big Girl.
Lola.
Flirting all night with Dre Big Norman's girl.
Lola, it wasn't.
Oh, Tross?
Oh.
'Twasn't my fault out dancing. Bad boy. What made you come so late? Who'd be so Tross all about talk to nice men who glad to talk to her.
Lola. Oh, Lola.
Naughty boy Baxter Tross. I dance with Josie Wosie. Come on, Josie.
Let's get started, Mr. Baxter, before the floor gets crowded. Don't let's waste a single moment. You know, when I meet a person whose step fits in with mine the way yours does, Mr. Baxter, I love to dance straight through an evening with one person.
Lola. Dear Lola, dearest Lola, just after you left, I went up to my room and began writing this poem to you. Lola, I want you to keep it with you always. The sunset light fades into night, but ne'er will I forget the smile that haunts me yet.
Willie, look who's down here playing with me.
What?
Her name's Rennie Kirkton. She just moved to Mr. Watson's house next door.
Oh, what do I care? Let me alone.
Jane, who's that? It's Willie. Is he your papa? No, it's Willie. Randy, let's play follow the leader. You do everything I do. Come on, you run after me.
The Smile that haunts me still, whate'er my name and station, whilst receiving my education, though far away you seem, I will see thee in my dream.
Ranny, stick your stomach out like this. Now walk with it all out of joint. I'm walking. Look, my stomach.
Jane.
What?
Stop that putting your stomach out in front of you like that. It's disgraceful.
Why doesn't he like it, James? Oh, I don't know. He doesn't like much of anything. Come on, stick out your stomach again.
I will see thee in a dream. Signed, William Baxter. Darling, when you read this poem, you'll really understand me. And remember, I shall be your Echo Boy Baxter, always and always, just for you.
That is your father in the window, isn't it, James? No, I told you 5 times it's my brother Willie. That's kind of crazy. That's because he's in love with Miss Pratt. She just went home after Mr. Parker pretty near died. She stayed so long.
I'll see to you.
Move on, Randy. He's coming after us. Run. I won't run, not for him. I'll stay right here.
You get out of here, hear me? You get out of here.
I won't. I won't. You can't force me. You're only Willie.
Why, you ugly, sooty-faced, pigtail little girl, you...
Yes, sir, that's what he called her. I was standing on the porch at the time, and I heard it with my own ears. Well, sir, that was a long time ago. 10 years since the Kirsteads moved in Doc Watson's house next door. A lot of strange things happened in 10 years. For instance, you'd never believe it when I tell you Willie Baxter, age 27, is finally doing a sensible thing. He's doing the only sensible thing he ever did in his life. Yes, sir, he's doing it right this minute, over at the Stone Church on Grove Street. He's standing kind of straight, his head up, at the end of a long aisle. There's a fine-looking girl got hold of his arm. Ranny's not got pigtails anymore. But she's still got good sense. And that's something Willie can count on for the rest of his life.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to 17. Not the celebrated stage play, but the Mercury Theater's own adaptation of the Booth Tarkington story. Tonight the cast included Ray Collins as Mr. Parcher. Ray Collins, one of the Mercury's unstarred stars, and Mary Wicks, another, as Mrs. Parcher. Joseph Cotton as Genesis. Betty Gard as Mrs. Baxter. Ruth Ford as the baby talk girl. Marilyn Erskine as Jane. Elliot Reed as Cousin George. And Patty Chapman as Ranny. William Sylvanus Baxter was probably all too recognizable. And finally, because the Mercury is often inclined that way and sometimes can't help it, and chiefly because he was kind enough to be party to this moment of good old-fashioned theater sentiment, Joe Bullitt, William Baxter's best friend, was played again tonight by one of the Mercury Theater's foremost and finest actors, Mr. Morgan Farley, who created the part in the stage play. Next week, inevitably, and because it's about time, Mr. Jules Verne's immortal romance about the man who kept his word, who watched the clock and lived up to it. Phineas Fogg, Passepartout, the beautiful Indian princess, and 1,000 other highly recognizable characters who I'm sure you've already identified with around the world in 80 days. Good night.
tonight's Mercury Theater broadcast, the orchestra was conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and Davidson Taylor supervised the production for CBS. This is Dan Seymour speaking. We invite you again to listen next week to Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Orson Welles insisted that his Mercury Company actors and crew be involved in the radio series. This was an unprecedented and expensive request, especially for one so young as Welles. Most episodes dramatize works of classic and contemporary literature, and it remains perhaps one of the most highly regarded radio drama anthology series ever broadcast, most likely due to the creativity of Orson Welles himself. And now, more of the Mercury Theater, right here on HOJO Radio.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects, vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. Near the end of October, business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on radios.
Next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move down rather rapidly over the northeastern states, bringing a forecast of rain accompanied by wind of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report comes to you from the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring you the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra. With a touch of the Spanish, Raymond Raquello leads off with La Comparsita. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity.
Professor Pearson of the observatory at Princeton confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Ramon Raquello, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
And now a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with noted astronomer Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra. We are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, where Carl Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Carl Phillips speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton. I'm standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides the ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across the disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point nearest the Earth, in opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr. Phillips. Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're quite convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance. Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pearson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Princeton, New Jersey, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. One moment, please. Professor Pearson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray of the Natural History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 20 miles of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division. Unquote. Professor Pearson, could this occurrence possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you from the observatory at Princeton, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was visible within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture of the scene as soon as he can reach there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millett and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music.
Yes, sir. Myself made the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin. Thankfully, your word picture of a strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit. Must have struck with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree. It must have struck on its way down. But I can see the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It looks more like a huge cylinder. Has a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pearson?
What's that?
What would you say, what's the diameter of this?
About 30 yards.
About 30 yards. The metal on the sheath is, well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Its curious spectators now are pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back, getting in front of my line. Would you mind standing one side, please, while you're pushing the crowd back? Here's Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmot, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that stopped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmot.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, closer.
Yes. I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsy. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half chosen and half...
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfway.
Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then you saw something.
Well, not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, then what?
I turned my head out the window and would have sworn I was asleep and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen a kind of greenish streak and then zingo. Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmot?
Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Thank you very much.
You want me to tell
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in the field in back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Car's headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object's half buried. Now, some of the more daring souls now are venturing near the edge. They're silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with the policeman. The policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but it's becoming more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen, please. Do you hear it? The curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer. Here. Now, we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pearson?
Yes, of course.
Can you tell us the meaning of that scraping noise inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial. Not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth, and you can see its cylindrical shape.
Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. This end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and this thing must be hollow.
He's moving! He's back there! He's back there! Keep those men back! He's back there! Keep those idiots back! He's off! The top flew! Go down! Stand back!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Something I can see coming out of that black hole through luminous discs. The eyes, it might be a face, Might be almost... Good heavens. Something wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. Now it's another one, and another one, and another one. They look like tentacles to me. Oh, yeah, I can see the thing's body now. It's large as a bear. It glistens like wet leather, but that face, ladies and gentlemen, to describe it, but I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. The eyes are black, and they gleam like a serpent. The mouth is kind of V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips. It seems to quiver and pulsate. And the monster, or whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now, and the crowd falls back. They seem plenty. The most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. Well, I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be right back in a minute.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmouth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmot's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain is conferring with someone. Can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. Flag of truce. Those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait a minute, something's happening. Humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames. The whole field caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. Coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there's some difficulty with our field transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey.
I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuation of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you.
You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commanding the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at Grover's Mill are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back in their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of the firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the fire. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are fighting the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish any contact with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you hear will be that of Professor Pearson, brought to you by direct wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can give you no authoritative information, either as to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in the Trenton Hospital. Now here's another bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia, stationed outside of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Here's a bulletin from State Police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there is no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the State Militia of Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the State Militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. Things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all their reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River. Probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it'll all be over. Now, wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmot Farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. A tub, rather. Well, wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal, kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. What? It's standing on legs, actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover Mills has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued, except routing some of the trains through Allerton and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It is estimated to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you
private citizens and public officials. All of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performance of our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may confront this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We're informed that the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. There is a special bulletin in New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving north toward Somerville with population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speed. Invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the foothills of Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines also sighted by telephone operator east of Middlesex within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here's a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery line in adjacent villages to give you direct reports from the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to their access.
Shift range 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire.
Hit that. Got the tripod of one of them. That's off. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire.
Can't see the shell lamp, sir. Letting off a smoke.
What is it?
Black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Flying close to the ground. Moving fast.
Put on gas mask. Get ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire.
Still can't see, sir. Smoke's coming nearer.
Get the range. 53 meters. 23 meters. 43 meters. Projection 22 degrees. 22 degrees.
Army bombing plane B-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Vogt, commanding 8 bombers, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Vogt reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder, 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled. Believed hit by shell from Army gun in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog hanging close to the earth of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing Passaic River into the Jersey marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station.
Machines are close together now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards, and we'll be over the first. 800 yards. 600. 400. 200. There they go. Giant arm raised. Green flash. Spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet. Engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them, plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8.
This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Raymond Boulevard. 2X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling CQ, 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building. I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have moved out along the roads to the north. Hutchison River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed. Noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in city. Wait a minute, the enemy's now in sight above the Palisades. Five great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. A bulletin is handed me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, one in Chicago, St. Louis. Seem to be time and space. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. Steel cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running toward the East River, thousands of them, dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue.
100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
Calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ, New York. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
You are listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a brief intermission. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, starring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air.
As I set down these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I've been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life. A life that has no continuity with the present. Furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hand, and I try to connect them with a professor who lives at Princeton and who, on the night of October 20th, glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. Find molded bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. Keep watch at the window. Time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. Morning. Sun streams in the window. A black cloud of gas is lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm had passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road, no traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. Push on north. For some reason I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I've seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the earth. Come to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. Fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through its desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature. A small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him and wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion. The joy of finding another living being. Push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy and a silo, remain standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse.
deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. North. Next day, I come to a city. City vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off as if a giant had sliced off its highest towers with a capricious sweep of his hand. Reached the outskirts, I found Newark. Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where do you come from?
Oh, I come from many places. A long time ago, from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
Hey, what was that? Did you hear something just then?
No. Only a bird. A live bird.
You get to know that birds have shadows these days. Say, we're in the open here. Let's crawl in this doorway here and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
No. They're going over to New York. Night, the sky's alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
Fly?
Yeah, fly.
Well, it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I. 2 of us left.
Yeah. They got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. That's good. There wasn't any war. Any more than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're eatable ants. I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep on doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic, like keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun?
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. No, instead of our rushing around blind, we got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress.
Yes, but if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
What is there left?
Life, that's what. I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either. Tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I got a plan. We men, as men, we're finished. We don't know enough. We got to learn plenty before we got a chance. We've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? I've thought it all out, see?
Well, tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. That's what it got to. That's what it got to be. That's why I watched you. Watched you. All those little office workers that used to live in these houses. They be no good. They haven't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they wouldn't be in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. Well, the Martians, they'll be a godsend for those guys. Nice, roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, after a week or so of chasing around the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians are going to make pets of some of them. Train them to do tricks. Who knows, get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah, and some maybe, they'll train to hunt us.
Oh, no, it's impossible.
Yes, they will. There's men who do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, by...
Meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I got it all figured out. Live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York, there are miles and miles of them. The main ones, they're big enough for anybody. And there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We got a bunch of strong men together. No weakness. That rubbish, out.
As you meant me to go.
All right. Give you a chance, didn't I?
Won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? Get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. May not be so much we have to learn before... Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left. Not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? But men. Men who've learned the way how. May even be in our time. Gee. Imagine having one of them lovely things with a heat ray wide and free. We'd turn it on Martians. We'd turn it on men. We'd bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan.
Yeah. You, me, a few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey. Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Bye, stranger. Well, after parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel, entered that silent tube. Anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. Reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s. Stood alone on Times Square. Caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. Made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. Walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks. Past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark. Past a shooting gallery where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. Over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of black birds circling in the sky. Hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see standing in a silent row along the mall 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground. And there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Slain, after all, man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God, His wisdom, has put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I've conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastnesses of sidereal space. But a remote dream, maybe that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve to them and not to us. The future ordained, perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study in Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record, begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children
playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean-cut, hard and silent under the dawn of that last great day. This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates. By tomorrow night, so we did the best next thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast has brought you The War of the World by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. Next week, we present a dramatization of 3 famous short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The choices Orson Welles made in developing this new series were informed by what he had learned in previous years and in other radio dramas. Chief among those choices was to create dramas specifically for the radio, and not simply to adapt dramas that were in production at the Mercury Theater. In close collaboration with John Houseman and other writers, Welles wrote, directed, and performed in the productions. The end result was a series of dramas based on literary rather than dramatic works. Houseman wrote the early scripts for the series, turning the job over to Howard Koch at the beginning of October. Music for the program was conducted by Bernard Herrmann. Now, more of the Mercury Theater, here on HOJO Radio.
For 17 weeks past, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air have brought you Mr. Welles' own dramatizations of literary classics, both of the past and from our own time. On all broadcasts but one, the presentation has been a single narrative. On one occasion, the Mercury players offered in dramatic form 3 of the world's great short stories. The success of that experiment led to nationwide requests for other brief narratives of contrasting emotional appeal. And so tonight, in their 18th broadcast, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air bring to life 2 famous short stories, each dealing with a different fundamental human emotion. The authors are Joseph Conrad and Clarence Day. Tonight, Mr. Welles will not only appear in several parts, but will also speak for the 2 authors as narrator. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the star and director of the Mercury Theater to tell you about the first presentation, Mr. Orson Welles.
Good evening. There was a man called Kashanovsky, an agitator for Polish freedom in the 50s, who was exiled by the Tsar. On the journey, his child was taken ill, and when he begged an official to let him stop on his way to nurse it, the official said, "Not to bother. What's one baby's life among all these thousands?" said the official. "If it's dying, leave it behind." Luckily, this expedient was found unnecessary. And the happy ending of the story is that little Joseph Conrad Kashanovsky lived to drop his last name and to learn that careful, fortunate English which he practiced to the everlasting glory of our literature. Tonight we present you with a dramatization of one of the best regarded and most typical of the works of Joseph Conrad. The Heart of Darkness could be described as a deliberate masterpiece, or a downright incantation. a fine piece of prose work at the least, its best aspects are an artful compound of sympathy for humankind and a high tragical disgust. Its successful contrivance of mood hides its craft as an octopus hides in its own ink. And almost we are persuaded that there is something, after all, something essential, waiting for all of us in the dark alleys of the world, aboriginally loathsome, immeasurable, and certainly nameless. To her anchor without a flutter of the sails. It was at rest. The flood had made the wind was nearly calm, and being bound down the river, the only thing to do was to come and wait for the turn of the tide. The sea reach of the Thames stretched before us like the beginning of an interminable waterway. In the offing, sea and sky were welded together without a joint. The air was dark above Gravesend. Farther back still, it seemed condensed into a mournful doom, brooding motionless over the biggest and greatest town on earth. Then in the darkness, my friend Marlowe spoke.
This also has been one of the dark places on the earth.
His remark didn't seem at all surprising. Marlowe was a sailor. Was just like him.
I was thinking of very old times when the Romans first came here. 1900 years ago. Some decent young citizen in a toga. Perhaps too much dice, you know. Coming out here to mend his fortunes. Land in a swamp, march through the woods, and in some inland post feel the savagery. The utter savagery that closed around him. Growing regret, the longing to escape, the powerless disgust, the surrender, the hate. I don't know if I ever told you. I was in such a place once. There I met a man just like that. It was a long time ago. I had a job with a concern at the time, a trading society in Western Africa. One of their captains had been killed in a scuffle with the natives. They needed a man to replace him on one of the river boats, and they weren't particular whom they took. I left in a German steamer, and she called at every port on the way. It was 30 days before I saw the mouth of the big river. The coast was the edge of a colossal jungle, so dark green as to be almost black. The sun was fierce. The land seemed to glisten and drip with steam. Here and there, grayish-white specks showed up, clustered inside the white surf with a tin shed and a flagpole. And all around, the jungle.
You know, it's funny, Mr. Barlow, where some people will live for a few francs a month.
Well, it looks like a dreary country, Captain. No mistake.
I wonder what becomes of those fellows when they go up country.
I expect to see that soon.
So? Don't be too sure. Last year I took up a man who hanged himself on the road. He was a Swede.
Hanged himself? Why?
Who knows? Sun was too much for him, or the country, perhaps. There's your company station. I'll send your things up. 4 boxes, you said so. Very well. Good luck to you.
Goodbye, Captain. As I climbed up the steep hill to the company station, I met a white man in such an unexpected elegance of get-up that in the first moment I took him for a sort of vision. I saw a high-starched collar, white cuffs, a light alpaca jacket, snowy trousers, a clear necktie, and varnished boots. No hat. Hair parted, brushed and oiled under a green-lined parasol.
You're Mr. Mallow?
Yes.
I'm the company's accountant. Step into my office.
What's that?
You don't disturb yourself. An agent from up country. Fever.
Will you just leave him there?
There is no place else to put him until he's... Well, as long as he's alive. It's a nuisance all around. His groans distract my attention. And it's difficult enough to guard against clerical errors in this country.
Yes, I suppose so.
So you're going to the Ivory Country, Mr. Mallow? Interesting.
I've gathered that impression already.
For my part, I like books better. Entries and all that. And by the way, you'll meet Mr. Kurtz up there, you know.
Who is Mr. Kurtz?
Mr. Kurtz is the agent at the farthest station inn. He sends down more ivory than all the others put together.
That must make him a valuable man to the company.
Indeed, he'll go far, very far. Over the heads of many of us that... Well, I won't go into detail. When you see Mr. Kurtz, please tell him that everything is very satisfactory. I'd write him, but you can't tell who might get hold of a letter at the central station. Oh, I forgot this sick man. I don't know, it's all right, he doesn't hear.
Do you mean...
Oh, no, not yet. Yes, this Mr. Kurtz. He's a very remarkable person.
Next day, I started for the central station, 200 miles inland. Paths everywhere, spreading over the empty land, through the long grass, through thickets, down and up chilly ravines, up and down stony hills ablaze with heat and solitude. Great silence around and above. On the 15th day, I came in sight of the big river again. Hobbled into the central station. It was on a black water surrounded by scrub and forest, with a pretty border of smelly mud on one side, and the 3 others enclosed by a crazy fence of rushes. White men with long sticks in their hands appeared languidly from amongst the buildings. They made no effort to welcome me. In fact, paid no particular attention to my arrival, except for a casual glance. I walked up to the largest hut in the enclosure. How do you do? My name is Marlowe. Captain Marlowe of the riverboat.
Oh, yes. You've been a long time coming, Marlowe. Your boat is wrecked, Captain.
What did you say, sir?
Wrecked. Her bottom was torn out on stones, and she sank near the south bank. But everyone behaved splendidly. You will have to fish her out. It will be some time before you will be able to make the trip up the river. For some months, in fact.
Why, that's unbelievable.
You'll believe it when you see her. I want you to have a look at her and let me know how soon she'll be ready.
Who are you, sir?
I'm the manager here, the company's manager. The situation here is grave, very grave. I don't yet know who is dead and who is alive. And with the boat laid up, we don't know how things stand. But there are rumors, grave rumors, that a very important station is in jeopardy. And Mr. Kurtz, our manager, is ill.
Kurtz? I think I heard his name down on the coast.
Ah, so they talk of Mr. Kurtz down there, do they?
They do? He must be a very unusual man.
Quite so. A very unusual man. Very successful, too. You can understand my anxiety. You should be ready to start in 3 months. Yes, 3 months. That ought to do the affair.
Went down and looked at my battered, twisted tin pot steamboat. She rang under my feet like an empty biscuit tin kicked along the gutter. I didn't realize at the moment how accurately the manager had estimated the time required for the affair, as he called it. Weeks of waiting. Weeks of waiting for a box full of rivets to come up from the coast. And in those weeks, I saw the station full of white men with long sticks in their hands, strolling aimlessly about like a lot of faithless pilgrims bewitched inside a rotten fence. The word ivory rang in the air, with whispers and with sighs. You'd think they were praying to the great god Ivory. I've never seen anything so unreal in my life. One evening, I happened to be in the hut of the assistant manager. I noticed on his table a small sketch in oils representing a woman draped and blindfolded carrying a lighted torch. Tell me, did you paint this?
Oh, no, that was painted by Mr. Kurtz in the station more than a year ago. Mr. Kurtz painted it while waiting for means to go to his trading post.
Oh, Mr. Kurtz, eh?
Mr. Kurtz is the chief of the inner station. Oh, he's a prodigy. He sends down more ivory than any of our other agents. Besides that, he's an emissary of pity and science and progress. And so he comes here, a special being. So today, Mr. Kurtz is the chief of the best station. Next year, he will be assistant manager. 2 years more and... but I dare say you know what he will be in 2 years' time. You're one of the new gang, Captain. Oh, I know what I'm talking about. I have my own eyes to trust.
You read the company's confidential correspondence.
What do you mean?
With Mr. Kurtz as general manager, you won't have the opportunity. Well, the rivets arrived just in time to make good the manager's prediction. In 3 months, almost to a day, I set out to the interior to relieve Mr. Kurtz at the inner station. Heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of the sunshine. As we steamed deeper into the jungle, the roll of drums behind the cordon of trees kept a distant, constant tremor. Guessing at the channel, watching for sunken stones that would have ripped the life out of the tin pot steamboat and drowned us all. Still the drums beat on behind us, ahead of us, on all sides of us. The steamer toiled along slowly on the edge of a black and incomprehensible frenzy. The prehistoric man, cursing us, praying to us, welcoming us. Who could tell? Not far below the inner station, we came upon a hut of reeds, an inclined and melancholy pole with the unrecognizable tatters of what had been a flag of some sort flying from it. The manager and I, who went ashore, found a flat piece of board with some faded pencil writing on it. It read, "Hurry up to inner station. Approach cautiously." There was a signature, but it was illegible. Not put.
What do you make of this, Captain?
Someone trying to be mysterious.
Approach cautiously. Approach what?
We better push on the right side out. We're only 8 miles from Kurtz now, aren't we?
8 miles of dangerous river. Sun's getting low. After this warning, I prefer to approach the station by daylight.
But Kurtz may need us. He may be in trouble.
I hope not. It wouldn't sit well with the company if something happened to Mr. Kurtz before we reach.
Is your only concern what the company thinks?
Just what do you mean?
How about Kurtz? Don't you want Kurtz to come back?
Why, Captain Marlowe, what an extraordinary notion. Of course, we want Mr. Kurtz to come back. Such a remarkable man.
When the sun rose next morning, there was a white fog, very warm and clammy and more blinding than the night. It stood all around us like something solid. At 8 or 9, perhaps, it began to lift as a shutter lifts. We had a glimpse of the growing multitude of trees, of the immense matted jungle with the blazing little ball of the sun hanging over it. At last, the opaque water, still and treacherous, was dimly visible from the wheelhouse where I stood beside my pilot. The company men, their alpaca suits whiter than the fog, stood on the deck below me.
Undercover, everybody.
Anchor they all.
All around us. Oh, Captain.
Yes?
Can't you get us on the way?
It's the natives of the rocks. Take your choice.
Try the river, Captain. They'll force us if we stay on shore.
Lie below. Even the chains. Steam ahead. Watch those eddies, pilot.
Watch, Captain.
Half steam below.
Look out there! Arrows!
Arrows! Close the shutters on your side, pilot.
Smoke. Can't see over.
Keep it straight, pilot. Stay below. Stop firing. Oh, wait. Here's something that'll do more than your confounded guns.
Are you up there, Captain?
All right. Well, thanks to your target practice.
Well, we beat them off.
You beat them off. The steam whistle beat them off. The gun smoke nearly wrecked us.
Captain Marlowe, you behaved admirably. Everyone behaved admirably. A credit to the company.
Well, I'm afraid they got one of the crew.
Yes, here he is on the deck. Poor devil. He's got an arrow sticking through his chest. Give me a hand with this arrow. Steady there. It's got a steel tip. Strange. There's no steel in the Belgian Congo. I wonder if by any chance Mr. Kurtz.
To reach Kurtz was becoming an obsession with me. The current was more rapid now. The steamer seemed at her last gasp. The stern wheel flopped languidly. And I caught myself listening always for the next beat of the engine. I expected the wrecked thing to give up every moment. It was like watching the last flickers of a light. At last we drew into sight of a dreary shore, and there was a clearing that rose to a slight knoll overlooking the river. The inner station was a long, tumble-down building perched on a hill, half buried in the high grass, with the thick, meshed jungle hanging over its rotted roof. I stopped the engines. The boat drifted slowly to the slimy bank. We let out the anchor chain to the stump of a tree. As soon as the gangplank was lowered, the company's manager and his 3 satellites set out with their brisk efficiency toward the silent house of Kurtz. After a moment, I became aware of a strange, ragged figure on the wharf. Hello down there.
Captain?
Come up here to the pilot house.
Captain, I'm glad you've come.
Did we come in time? How is Mr. Kurtz?
Mr. Kurtz, sir. Still Mr. Kurtz.
We were just attacked by natives on the river.
Oh, yes. They are simple people. They meant no harm. It was one of Mr. Kurtz's little jokes. Now, allow me to introduce myself. Sekosov, Russian. Son of an archpriest. Government of Temple. A great pleasure to talk with a white man, Captain.
Don't you talk with Mr. Kurtz?
Oh, you don't talk with that man. You listen to him. Mr. Kurtz, Captain, has enlarged my mind. We've talked of everything. Everything. He made me see things.
And ever since, you've been with him, of course.
Oh, on the contrary. Very often I had to wait for days before he would turn up. It was worth waiting for, though. Sometimes.
What was he doing? Exploring, or what?
Oh, yes, of course. He's discovered many villages of late, too. And so exactly in what direction. Dangerous to inquire too much. Most of these expeditions were for ivory.
He had no goods to trade with by that time, did he?
There's a lot of good cartridges left even yet.
You mean he raided the country?
Not alone.
Kurtz got the tribes to follow him, did he?
Oh, they adore him. They think him a god. They worship him with ivory. What can you expect? He came to them with thunder and lightning, you know. They'd never seen guns before. He could be very terrible. You can't judge Mr. Kurtz as you would ordinary man. Now, just to give you an idea, I don't mind telling you he wanted to shoot me, too, one day. But I don't judge him.
Shoot you? What for?
Well, I had a small lot of ivory, and he wanted it, and wouldn't hear reason. He said he'd shoot me unless I gave him the ivory and cleared out. I gave him the ivory. Of course I did. But I didn't clear out. I couldn't leave him. I offered to go back with him, and he would say yes, and then he would disappear on another ivory hunt. Forget himself among these people. Forget himself. You know.
Why? The man's mad.
We don't say such things here.
I followed the frightened glance of the Russian to the house above the shore. I saw that the round knobs that stood on stakes by Kurtz's door were not ornamental, but were symbolic. Food for thought, and also for vultures. They would have been even more impressive, those heads on the stakes, if their faces had not been turned to the house. Suddenly, round the corner of the house, a group of natives appeared, as though they had come up from the ground. They waded waist-deep in the grass in a compact body bearing an improvised stretcher in their midst. Now, at last, I was to see Kurtz. Behind the stretcher, two of the agents carried his arms. 2 shotguns, a heavy rifle, and a light revolver carbine. The thunderbolts of that pitiful Jupiter. By now I knew what I watched was not merely the departure of Mr. Kurtz from the inner station, but the last jungle rites of one who had become its supreme being. The dark warm of the wilderness breathed out an immense horde of naked men. A black circle that writhed and stamped around the small white center of frightened Europeans. In the rear of this strange procession came a moving chain of black bodies, carrying on their shoulders the gleaming white ivory. The stretcher was carried up the gangplank. From the pilot's deck, I looked down on the long, gaunt figure of Kurtz. The hollow cage of his ribs. The bald skeleton head like an ivory ball.
Put him down there.
Get the cabin ready.
Open the door.
Careful with him. Careful.
A moment later, the
The manager came up to the pilot's bridge.
Oh, Captain Marlowe.
Yes?
I think we should steam up as soon as the ivory's loaded. No telling about these natives.
Mr. Kurtz.
Mr. Kurtz is a very sick man. We've done all we could for him, though, haven't we? But there's no disguising the fact that Mr. Kurtz has been more harm than good to the company. There's a remarkable quantity of ivory, but his methods have been unsound.
You call it unsound methods?
Without doubt, don't you?
No methods at all. But he got the ivory. I consider Mr. Kurtz a remarkable man.
He was. A most remarkable man.
So we swung downstream, and thousands of eyes from the jungle followed the splashing river demon, beating the water with its terrible tail and breathing black smoke into the air. Through the dense forest, the brown current ran swiftly out of the heart of darkness, bearing us down towards the sea with twice the speed of our progress upstream. And Kurtz's life was running swiftly too, ebbing out of his heart into the sea of inexorable time. Evenings, when the boat was anchored and I was free from the wheel, I went down to Kurtz's cabin. On the third night, I found him weakening fast.
Yes.
How are you tonight, Mr. Kurtz?
Well enough to be back at my station. That place is mine. You've no right to take me away. That manager, that stupid scoundrel, he wants my ivory. He's blocked me at every turn.
Don't excite yourself, Mr. Kurtz. You're sick, you know.
Sick? Sick? Not so sick as you'd like to believe. Never mind. I'll carry out my ideas yet. I will return. I'll show you what can be done here. You with your little peddling notions. You're interfering with me. I will return. I have more to do than die here in this stinking jungle.
You're not going to die, Mr. Kurtz.
Of course I'm not going to die. I have too much to accomplish. Close the shutter, will you? That light. Did you close the shutter, Mr. Marlowe?
The shutter is closed, sir.
Tighter. I can't stand the light. I tell you. You must show them you have in you something that is really profitable. The methods you use aren't important. I was driven. No matter. You must take care of the motives, Mr. Marlowe. Right motives, always. That's the thing.
Very true, sir.
It was the manager, that noxious fool, who drove me to it. He pried into my boxes when I was not looking. He destroyed me with the company. But I was the company. I was the company. I sent them more ivory. More ivory. That's what they wanted. Ivory.
You must be quiet, sir.
Ivory. That light, shut up. That light.
There is no light, sir.
It's the ivory. The ivory. Horror. Horror.
The next day, soon after dawn, they lowered his body into a muddy hole in the bank of the Mercury River. We started downstream again. Among his belongings was a packet of letters and the photograph of a girl. 6 months later, those letters and the picture took me to a house in Antwerp. I stood before the mahogany door on the first floor.
Dear Mr. Marlowe, please come in.
I have certain letters for you.
Yes. You were his friend. He must have been if he gave you these and sent you to me.
Yes. I was his friend.
Who was not his friend who had heard him speak once? Who drew men towards him by what was best in them? It was the gift of the great. But you have heard him. You know.
Yes. I know.
And all of this, all of his promise, and of all his greatness, of his generous mind, of his noble heart, nothing remains. Nothing but a memory. You and I.
We shall always remember him.
And his example. Men looked up to him. His goodness shone in every act. I believe in him more than anything on earth. Forgive me. I've mourned so long in silence. In silence. You were with him to the last.
At the very end. I heard his very last words.
Repeat them. I want something to live with. His last word to live with. Don't you understand? I loved him. I loved him. I loved him.
The last word he pronounced was your name.
My friend Marlowe ceased. The story was over. Nobody moved for a time.
Well, we've lost the first of the ebb.
I raised my head. The offing was barred by a black bank of clouds, and the tranquil waterway leading to the uttermost ends of the earth flowed somber under an overcast sky and seemed to lead into the heart of an immense darkness.
Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air have just brought you an original dramatization of The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, with Orson Welles as the author and as Kurtz. The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations are presenting Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in two famous stories dramatized for radio. And here again is Orson Welles.
Our radio adaptation of Life with Father is nothing more than a selection of our favorites from among those tales that Clarence Day swore were true about Clarence Day Sr. Life with Father is, of course, too good for us and too good to resist. As radio writers, we promise not to touch, but do just let us read it to you aloud. And finally, may I say that any similarity in the following broadcast to persons in real life is just as it should be. Up to the late 1890s, we lived in one of the long rows of comfortable-looking brownstone houses on Madison Avenue. Father went downtown each morning on the 6th Avenue elevated, but Mother felt that horse cars were better. She didn't like the soot and cinders from the steam engine that pulled the 4-passenger cars, and the toot of the whistle made her nervous. No telegraph poles were allowed on 5th Avenue, but they stood in long rows on other thoroughfares. We had wires in our house, but they were good, honest, old-fashioned wires, and to make them work, we had to pull them. There was none of this dangerous stuff called electricity in them. Electricity was too risky a thing to put in a home. All we knew about it was that there were electric batteries in the Eden Museum which could and did give anyone who paid 25 cents a shock. Telephones had been invented, but like most people, Father hadn't installed one. Messenger boys were quite enough of a nuisance, suddenly appearing at the door and expecting an answer, but they came only a few times a year, and a telephone might ring every week. Little by little, however, telephones came into use, and after about 10 or 15 years, in spite of still having misgivings, Father got one. It was put on a wall on the 2nd floor, where everybody could hear its loud bell from the first. I can assure you it made trouble.
I'm coming.
I'll answer the cursed thing. Hello? Speak up, can't you hang it? What is it? Who are you? I can't hear a word you're saying. I can't hear a blasted word, I tell you.
Here, give me that telephone. You know you don't know how to use it.
I will not give you this telephone. You let me alone. I'm trying to find out who the devil this person is. Hello? I say hello there. You hear me? Who are you? Hello? What's that? Oh, it's you, Mrs. Nichols. Yes, Mrs. Day's here. How are you? Oh, you wish to speak to Mrs. Day. Oh, very well, then. Wait a moment. Vinny, it's for you. It's Mrs. Nichols. Why don't you answer the telephone yourself, my dear? One day, a friend of mine, a girl who had moved to live in a settlement house downtown, telephoned to invite me to lunch with some visiting Russians. Father answered the telephone. Hello, yes? This is Mrs. Day. Speak up, hang it. Don't mumble at me. Who are you? What? Come to lunch. I've had lunch. Next Friday? Why, I don't want to lunch with you next Friday. No. Where? Where do you say? In Rivington Street, the devil. Yes, my name is Clarence Day, and I told you that before. Don't repeat. Lunch with you in Rivington Street? Good Lord, I never heard of such a thing in my life. Russians? I don't know any Russians. No, I don't want to either. No, I haven't changed. I never changed. What? Goodbye, madam. Blast.
I think that was a friend of mine, Father.
A friend of yours? Oh. It sounded to me like some impudent peddler's wife this time, arguing with me about lunching with her somewhere down in the slums. I can't stand it, that's all I have to say. I'll have the confounded thing taken out. One day, when I was about 10 years old, and my brother George 8, Father suddenly remembered an intention of his to have us taught music. Now, there were numerous things he felt every boy ought to learn, such as swimming, blacking his own shoes, and bookkeeping. He now recalled that music, too, should be included in our education. He held that all children should be taught to play on something and sing. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do.
But, Father, Father, I can't sing.
It's very simple, Clarence. Of course you can sing. It's the natural expression for a child.
But, Father, I have no ear. You know when I tried to learn the piano...
Nonsense. Now, here. This game. Do, re, mi, fa, do, la, mi, do, re, mi, fa, do, la, mi, do. Now, you sing it. I'll come to you.
But, Father, I can't sing.
Nonsense, my boy. What do you know about what you can or can't do? Just do whatever I tell you and you'll be all right. Do, re. Once again.
Do.
No. Do.
I'm sorry, Father. I don't understand exactly.
Don't understand what? It's perfectly simple. You just sing now. Do. Re. Follow me.
Do. Re. Mi. But, Father, you see your voice matches the piano. I don't know how to make mine.
All right, then. Try to learn one note at a time. If you can't sing the whole scale, just sing do. Do. Once again. Do.
But, Father, it doesn't mean anything.
Do. It's a note, don't you understand? A note in music. Try again now. Do. Do.
Claire, what are you doing?
What am I doing, Vinny? Can't you hear what I'm doing? I'm trying to teach your oldest son to sing.
But, Claire, can't you hear how it sounds?
Will you please go away, my dear, and leave me alone with my son? If his voice is painful to you, go where you can't hear it.
Claire.
Dash it, I will not be interfered with. I'm sick and tired of being systematically thwarted and hindered in my own house. Can't stand it another moment. Think I can't teach him? You teach him.
You only have to come right back down again. The soup being put on the table.
I don't want any dinner.
Oh, Claire, please. It's oyster soup.
Don't want any. So we sat down, frightened at table. Mother, my brother George, and I. The soup was a lifesaver. It was more like a stew, really. Milk and oyster juice and big oysters. I put lots of small, hard crackers into mine and a slice of French toast. The hot toast soaked in soup was delicious, only there wasn't much of it. And as Father particularly liked it, we had to leave it for him. Father came down in the middle of it, still offended, but he ate his full share. Father was often offended when he tried to teach us boys things, but not as badly as when he tried to teach Mother. Father was always trying to teach Mother to keep track of the household expenses.
Claire, I do try.
Upon my soul, I almost believe you don't know what system is. You don't want to know either. Now, here, for instance. Here in my notebook, I see that I gave you $6 in cash on the 25th of last month to buy a new coffee pot.
Yes, but you broke the old one. You threw it right on the floor.
I'm not talking about that, Vinny. I'm simply endeavoring to find out from you if I can.
But it's so silly to break a nice coffee pot, Claire, and that was the last of those French ones. I spent $4.50 for that new umbrella. I told you I wanted, and you said I didn't need a new one, but I did very much. And that must have been the week I paid Mrs. Tobin for an extra 2 days washing, so that makes $6.50. And that's another 6.50 you owe me.
I don't owe you anything, Vinny. You have managed to turn a coffee pot for me into an umbrella for you. If this sort of thing keeps on, I might just well not keep account books at all. Father sighed and got out his pencil and wrote new umbrella for V in his notebook. Sort of thing left him very discouraged. Father got annoyed with us when he didn't stay well. He usually stayed well himself, and he expected us to be like him and not to faint and slump on his hands and thus add to his burdens. All this talk about germs, a lot of newfangled nonsense. When I was a boy, there were no germs that I knew of, and if they do exist, what of it? I'm as healthy as they are. If any blasted germs want to have a try at me, bring them on! Aside from colds, which he had very seldom, his only foes were sick headaches. When one of these headaches started, Father lay down and shut his eyes tight and yelled. The severity of a headache could be judged by the volume of sound he put forth. His idea seemed to be to show the headache he was just as strong as it was and stronger. When he and the headache went to bed together, they were a noisy pair. From Father's point of view, Mother didn't know how to handle an ailment. Even when she had a cold, he became fretful. He pished and pooed to himself and muttered that it was silly. He usually came up from office about 5 or 6, and then he'd look around the house to find Mother. Made his home feel queer and empty to him when she wasn't there. Go up to her room. The smell of witch hazel was in the air, mixed with spirits of camphor. On the bed, huddled under an Afghan, Mother lay still in the dark. Vinny? Are you there, Vinny?
Go away.
What?
Go away. Oh, go away.
Good Lord.
Claire,
What is it?
won't you please shut my door again?
After supper, he didn't seem to know what to do with himself, so he'd go up and stand at the foot of Mother's bed, look gloomy.
What is it, Claire?
Nothing.
Well, for mercy's sake, don't stand there looking like that, Claire.
What do you mean, looking like that?
Oh, go away. When people are sick, they like to see a smile or something. I never will get well if you stand there and stare at me that way. Please shut my door quietly this time and leave me alone.
Father came downstairs. He looked more cheerful. Well, my boy. Mother's all right again. She isn't out of bed, but sounds much better this evening. One evening, Father found Mother worrying because Aunt Emma was sick with influenza. Oh, pooh, there's nothing the matter with Emma. You can trust people to get any ailment whatever that's fashionable. They hear a lot of other people having it, and the first thing you know, they get scared and think they have it themselves. Then they go to bed and send for the doctor. The doctor, oh, poppycock.
Well, but Claire, dear, if you were in charge of them, what would you do instead?
Cheer 'em up. Cheer 'em up. That's the way to cure 'em.
Well, how would you cheer them up, darling?
All right. I tell 'em, bah. One late afternoon, when Father came home from downtown, he found his home very much upset. Our cook had walked out and left us. I was a child of 4, my brother George 2, and there was a new baby besides. Mother was ill. She hadn't been able to leave us to go to an agency, and she was no hand at cooking herself. The outlook for dinner was poor. What do you intend doing, Vinny? What's become of us?
Claire, why don't you go dine at your club for once?
Ridiculous. I never died in the club. I won't do it. Any time I can't have my dinner in my own home, this house is for sale. I'm ready to sell the place this very minute if I can't live here in comfort, and we can all go and sit under a palm tree and live on breadfruit and pickles.
I'll try to get to an agency in the morning, Claire. See what I can do.
In the morning? Good heavens. Where is this place? I'm going there right now. So Father put on his hat and gloves and started out for the agency. There was nobody in the place except a woman sitting at a desk. Good day. Where are they?
I beg your pardon, sir. What did
Where do you keep them? I'm asking, where do you keep them?
Well, the girls are in there, but the clients are not allowed in that room. If you will tell me the kind of position you wish me to fill for you, I'll have one of them come out. We don't allow that. But, sir, you simply mustn't go.
Father had thrown open the door and gone in. There sat a crowd of girls, young and old, sickly and brawny, of all shapes and sizes. Father pointed his cane at a little woman in the corner who sat there with honest gray eyes, shrewd-looking and quiet. I'll take that one.
But, sir, I don't even know what position you...
Cook! Cook!
But Margaret doesn't wish to be a cook. She wants...
You can cook, can't you?
I
I did cook for one family once, sir.
Oh, of course she can cook. I knew at once she could cook.
If you're going to take her anyhow, whether she cooks or not, what day would you wish her to come, and would you please give me your name?
Name? Why should I give you my name? Come on, Margaret. You come right home with me now. Goodbye, ma'am. Margaret followed Father back, and he set her right down to the kitchen to cook dinner. I don't know why people make such a fuss about engaging new servants. It seems simple enough to me. And it was, too. Margaret stayed with us 26 years. And Margaret was just the kind of cook Father wanted. Lots of cooks can do rich dishes well. Margaret couldn't, but she cooked simple, everyday dishes in a way that made our mouths water. Father said her apple pies were the most satisfying he ever tasted. Her warmed-up potatoes were so delicious, he used sometimes to make a whole dinner of them. Yet even Margaret sometimes miscalculated. A large, royal-looking steak would be set before Father, which upon being cut into would turn out to be underdone. Father's face would darken with disappointment. He would raise his foot under the table and stamp slowly and heavily 3 times on the rug. At this solemn signal, we could hear Margaret leaving the kitchen far below. Margaret?
Yes, Mr. Day.
Margaret? That steak.
Oh, the Lord bless us and save us.
She would then seize the platter and make off with it to better it the best way she could. Father would gloomily wait and eat a few vegetables and pour out a fresh glass of claret. But sometimes the dish came up that was so perfect that Father's face would sprinkle with pleasure, and with a wink at us he would summon Margaret. Margaret?
Yes, Mr. Day.
Margaret? That fricassee chicken is good. Margaret would turn her wrinkled face aside and look down and push the platform out towards Father. The same gesture she used when she said, "Get along with you," to Fletcher. She couldn't say that to Father, but she would beam at him and turn and roll out and dump back down the dark stairs without ever a word. In the end, Father had to get used to another cook because Margaret died. At alternate meals, Father talked of how good her things always tasted. Well, this pie's good, Benny. Nobody could say it compared with Margaret's.
I wish she could hear you. If anybody was ever sure of going to heaven, I know it was Margaret.
Yeah, I'll look her up when I get there. Have her take care of me.
But Claire...
What's the matter?
Well, Claire, dear, Margaret must be in some special sort of heaven. She was so good. You'd be very fortunate, Claire, to get to the same part as Margaret.
Huh. I'll make a devil of a row if I don't.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System has presented the 18th Weekly Hour featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. In just a moment, Orson Welles will return to the microphone with an announcement regarding his future plans. Meanwhile, a word about tonight's production of 2 famous stories. Mr. Welles spoke for each of the authors as narrator. In The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, Ray Collins was featured as the narrator Captain Marlowe. The accountant was played by Alfred Shirley, the assistant manager George Coulouris, the second manager Edgar Barrier, the agent William Alland, Kurtz's intended bride Anna Stafford, Cherkosov, Frank Rettig, Kurtz by Orson Welles. And the African music was directed by Asadata Dafora Horton, whose drummers have been heard in the African dance drama Kai Kunkor and Mr. Welles's production of Macbeth. The excerpts from Life with Father by Clarence Day, which concluded the program, featured the mother Mildred Natwick, the Employment Office Manager Mary Wicks, Margaret Alice Frost, the boy Clarence Arthur Anderson, Father Orson Welles. The orchestra was conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and Davidson Taylor supervised the production for CBS. This is Dan Seymour speaking. Next Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air will bring to life a modern story of romance and adventure. The story of a man who lost a great love and who could have no quiet and no sleep until he found that love again. The famous novel, One Life to And now again, the star and director of the Mercury Theater, Orson Welles.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy at this time to announce that starting Friday, December 9th, from 9 to 10 p.m., and each Friday thereafter, we of the Mercury Theater will be sponsored over most of these stations by the makers of Campbell's Soups. Good night.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
The early dramas in the series were praised by critics, but unfortunately the ratings were low. A single broadcast changed all of that. The October 30th, 1938 adaptation of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, where possibly thousands of listeners thought Martians were in fact invading the Earth. The War of the Worlds notoriety had a welcome side effect as well of netting the show a sponsorship of Campbell's Soup, guaranteeing its survival for a period. And beginning on December 9th, 1938, the show was retitled The Campbell's Playhouse. The company moved to Hollywood for their second season and continued briefly after Wells' final performance in March of 1940. Wells revived the Mercury Theater title for a short series in the summer of 1946. And now, more from the Mercury Theater, right here on HOJO Radio.
Theater on the Air. Tonight, Orson Welles produces and directs the 19th broadcast in the Mercury Theater series of dramatized great narratives. There have been a number of famous authors represented in the broadcast, but none so young as Ellis St. Joseph, whose name many of us may be hearing for the first time tonight. The story is one which Mr. Welles has long considered, and he takes great pleasure in presenting A Passenger to Bali by Ellis St. Joseph, one of the great short novels of recent years. The young author was born in 1911 and gathered material for A Passenger to Bali during a trip on a freighter in the Pacific. Though all the characters in his story are imaginary, the hurricane and certain other of the incidents actually took place. The freighter upon which he traveled was making its last voyage, and his story carries the weight of first-hand experience. The Mercury Theater on the Air presents A Passenger to Bali, starring Orson Welles as Dr. Albie Wolf.
My name is English, Captain English. Perhaps the telling of this story will serve to expel from my mind my last lingering glimpse of Walk as I left him,
A vision that appears more real in retrospect than it did at the time. It has grown real in the 14 years that have passed. It was what some men call chance and others destiny that link our lives on the dock at Shanghai, and a light disrupted them 200 miles out at sea. I merely accepted him as a passenger on the steamship Roundabout, a tramp steamer flying the British flag, carrying a crew of 3 white officers and 20 Kanaka boys, which I owned and put to trade in the Southern Pacific.
Listen to that. Oh, blimey. Fog's getting colder and thicker every minute. Cammy, that's what it is. There gives you the creeps not to see 5 foot in front of you. Only white wherever you look. Dan Olson. Fog is fog. Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it ain't. Superstitious, Mr. Randall? Now, look here, Mr. Stagg. You might be first mate and me only second mate. But we're both sailors, and I says it's a little queer. Fog like this ain't natural on the Yangtze River this late in the year. The anchor ain't lifted yet. Captain broke. Bad omens, that's what. Saw a rat dive overboard this morning. You're joking. We don't want to joke about a thing like that. That rats leaving a ship. No seafaring man is...
Shanghai. Port Police.
What are they snooping around here for? Like blooming ghosts.
Contraband, maybe.
It may be worse, eh? What I wants to know is what brings them here. Here, Mr. Stagg, to the roundabout. I got a feeling about this here ship.
Gentlemen. Oh, is that you, Mr. Engel?
Yes, Captain English.
They finished putting the coal on board. Will you pay them off as quickly as possible?
Yes, I'll do that, Captain. Time's money, that's what I said.
Dirty fog, then. Notice how she's closing in, blowing right up the river in our faces. Worse luck. Mr. Stagg, have you noticed anything unusual tonight? Like what, sir? Oh, for one thing, Shanghai Port Police. Yes, I did, sir. Not more than a minute back, the launch went by. Anything wrong, Captain? No, I'm certain of it. We should have been out of the harbor and down the river 2 hours ago. Oh, what would be in the wind, Captain? Just, for instance, some sort of trouble on the waterfront, I suspect. I knew something was brewing when we had trouble getting our deckhands. Oh, is that all, sir? I was worried for a minute. It's quite enough, Mr. Stagg. You can go right on being worried.
No, I thought from the way them police looked, it might have something to do with us, sir.
What? With the roundabout?
Personal like.
Well, it will if we don't clear this harbor. Not a very pretty world where peaceful men have to go about carrying a gun.
Never knew you to tote one of them before. Protection, huh?
From what, sir? From the Yangtze Kiang here, and the river pirates that shark it. From my own Kanaka boys, if they get the right meaning of the wrong words. From such a night as this.
Captain, is that you, Captain?
Yes, Mr. Randall.
I paid that coaling gang double quick, Captain. What I says is, save time, save money, eh? Time's money.
Right you are, Mr. Randall. We've got precious little of both of them. Well, let's be off. Give the orders, Mr. Stagg.
Yes, sir.
Captain English! Captain English! Captain English!
That was the first time I heard that man's voice, calling my name. It's been ringing in my ears ever since. That was the first time I saw his enormous figure in its bell-shaped greatcoat. A figure that haunts me still. Haunts me. Mind you, I accept no more responsibility for his end, if it was an end, than I do for his emergence from the fog that night.
Captain English?
Yes? Who is it?
Have I the honor of addressing Captain English of the Roundabout?
I am Captain English.
Allow me to introduce myself, Captain English. I am the Reverend Dr. Rob Walks, a Dutch missionary, A missionary, Captain, bound for Bali, there to distribute Bibles and spread the word of the Lord.
Well, what can I do for you?
Your hand, sir. The Lord has brought us together tonight, Captain. What the Lord has put together, let no man put asunder.
Isn't that your marriage sermon, Dr. Walks?
Well, Captain, our first meeting is a marriage.
Or a parting.
Captain. So, you're looking at this thing men call my face. Have you seen it before?
No.
Good, so much the better. Then we can start from scratch.
Captain! Captain! Ready to rise?
I'll be with you in a moment, Mr. Stagg. Excuse me, you see, we're ready to sail, you see.
I'm not giving to wasting words in mundane affairs, Captain English. Not I save my breath. You see how very brief I can be. Captain English, I am told that your boat puts in at Gulalong, the port of Bali. Is that correct?
Quite.
In that case, here you will find a Dutch passport, several papers for identification, mostly a clerical, and about 400 in American dollars. Be good enough to examine them. If the papers, the money, and myself meet with your approval, I shall sail with you tonight.
Oh. Well, your passport seems in order. The photograph is you?
Yes. My shadow in the sun. Yet a man must hold his shadow or lose the earth it falls on. Captain?
The visa seems proper. These letters?
Testimonials of faith, sir.
And the money?
Testimonials of faith of another kind.
Well, I'm afraid it's unfeasible, Dr. Walks. The roundabout is a trading seat.
Name your price.
Well, I admit you tempt me. Funds are a bit low right now.
Now's the time, then. Decide, sir. You own the ship as well as commander.
Yes, I know.
Then hoist your British flag, Captain, and be off with your Dutch passengers.
Wait a minute. You say you're a Dutchman, yet you don't have much of an accent.
Captain English, the Lord speaks in many tongues.
It's odd that you should have waited until the last moment, Dr. Walks.
His work knows no other time than the present.
It's very irregular, you understand, accepting at the last moment without proper investigation a stranger
A stranger? A minister of the Lord. Well, Captain?
There's a police launch again. The third time tonight.
Well, Captain?
Very well. I'll take you.
The meeting, sir, is a marriage.
10 minutes later, with Dr. Walks and his 2 large packing cases on board, we set sail from Shanghai. The following days faded into each other and blurred into weeks. First it was cold, then it was hot. Nothing disturbed the ordered routine except the presence of Dr. Walks. He threw a palpable shadow over the whole ship. Something you couldn't put your finger on. A sort of restlessness, unspoken dissension among the crew, even the officers. I pretended not to notice. And then one day it was useless to pretend any longer. Mr. Wrangler and I were on our way down to the mess room for lunch. From inside we heard the voice of our Chinese cook.
All right, Chinaman. Now, what more did he say?
Just what he say. He got fella love God, hate devil.
What else did he say? Come on, spit it out or I'll break your wrist.
What's this, Mr. Stagg?
Ask him, sir.
True?
No, Captain. Excuse, please, Captain.
I think I'd rather hear it from you, Mr. Stagg. Chu, you may go.
Thanks very much, Captain.
Chu's been breaking place, sir. Gave me some lip, guilty of insubordination. You saw the way he backed out.
Your word's enough, Mr. Stagg.
Thank you, sir.
Though I hardly see the necessity for handling it, well, handling him as you did over a broken plate.
Ah, blast him. It was more than the plate.
Well, what was it?
That Dutchman, sir. He's up to something. He's been talking to the crew.
We'll not discuss the matter any further, Mr. Stagg. Gentlemen, shall we sit down? Dr. Walks is late for lunch, as usual.
You make up for it, he will, when he sees the grub in front of him. Ain't natural for a man of the cloth to eat so much. And what I say is, how can any man be godly on a full stomach?
Much easier, I should say, than on an empty one.
What use does he put his belly to, I wants to know? Don't bend it to no work. Shoves it into the prow of the boat and stands there all day like a bleeding figurehead. What for?
What's a figurehead for?
But is it natural, sir? Always to have him ahead of us wherever we goes? It gives you the feeling that he's taking the boat where he wants.
He's too big for his clothes, if you ask me. I don't think he's even a reverend. And I don't care if he is or not. He makes my gorge rise. Just the sight of him and that smile of his.
There is something queer about him, all right. You feel it yourself, Captain.
Gentlemen, I'd rather not discuss Dr. Walks.
Captain, you can use words better than I can, but I'm right and you know it. It was a bad night when you picked him off the wharf without knowing no more of him than you could see in the fog.
Mr. Stagg, are you questioning the behavior of a superior officer?
I'm sorry, sir. It's simply that I...
Good day, gentlemen. Another day, another lunch. Yes, a good lunch, too, I see.
Good day, Dr. Walks.
Thank you. Mr. Stagg and Mr. Wrangle, I see, prefer a silent grace, as usual. Maketh me to lie down in the green pastures. He prepareth the table for me in the presence of my enemies. Amen. Gentlemen, I have an excellent appetite today.
I congratulate you, Dr. Walks. You've made a conquest of our cook.
The quickest way to a ship's heart is through its belly, sir.
Well, why not go straight to the heart?
A practicing missionary, Captain English, cannot afford an impractical idealism. Opportunism, strategy, even lip service, sir.
Oh, do you really believe that the end justifies the means?
The essential means is strength. The essential end is success.
Oh, you believe even in violence, then, Dr. Walks, to attain your end?
Even without an end, Captain English. Force. Force, sir. Grab what you can in your fists and throw the scraps to the weak. The law of nature, sir. Time to kill, time to heal. Time to break down and a time to build up.
Look here, I don't know where you gets that kind of talk from.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 3. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted.
You ain't got no right to talk like that. Done holy, that's what. What a good mind to report you to your bishop.
Gentlemen.
Read man's past in water. Gentlemen, read man's past in water. Read his future in sand. Today is the time to tear down. Tomorrow, time enough to build.
Mr. Stagg, did you hear that?
I won't sit at the same table with a...
With a what, Mr. Stagg?
I don't know what. That's no name for the likes of you.
Well, Stagg has had his fill. How about you, Mr. Wrangle?
If that's the kind of thing you preaches to the natives, I'm sorry for him, I am. Excuse me, Captain.
Well, we're alone now, Captain. Are you with me, sir?
No, Mr. Walks. You are with me, on my ship, which you seem to have forgotten. Began to count the days to Bali. We lay over at the Philippines, and then we stopped at Surabaya. Meanwhile, our passenger consorted with the crew, a companionship I didn't discourage, for it relieved us of his presence. Moreover, there was an epidemic of surreptitious drinking upon this particular trip, difficult to cope with. It seemed to have some connection with him. Although what, I couldn't tell. He got on altogether too well with the native crew. Night after night, his loud laughter mingled with theirs and carried up to us in the wheelhouse. And then, the evening before we reached Bali...
Listen. Yeah, listen. You could hear it with 6 foot of dirt near the ears. Try to sleep through that. Look at them down there, prancing around that lantern like it was a bonfire. And him in the middle and leading them like he was Queen of the May.
Oh, shut that door. Captain, are you going to stand for it?
What can I do, Mr. Stagg?
Put him in chains.
Well, we'll be rid of him tomorrow in Bali.
What about that native crew down there? Ain't they going to be on board after tomorrow?
I'll take my chances with them when Dr. Walks is ashore.
Well, we know you're not scared, sir, but...
It doesn't matter whether you think I'm a coward, Mr. Stagg.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, you know, Captain, it's going to be a sad blow to lose our passenger. Come to love him we have, haven't we, Mr. Stagg? Yes, sir. Bali's in luck to get a man like him. Holy and wholesome he is. It ain't every day we have a passenger like Mr. Walks.
Say, what's that?
Someone coming up from below. Captain English. Captain English.
What do you want, Mr. Walks? This is the wheelhouse. Passengers are not admitted.
Captain English!
What is it?
Oh, sir. I am come to you from the ends of the earth, from the brine of the sea, a gift that fortune has bestowed upon you. Captain English!
Mr. Wrangell, kindly help Dr. Walks to his bunk.
My bunk. Bunk. What for, Captain English? Shall I close my eyes and count sheep? Man has no time to sleep. He'd count them all.
Dr. Walks, you have a fever. You're heavy clothes in this heat. What?
Sleep. Sleep is a rehearsal of death. I want to live.
Yes, but Dr. Walks,
Captain English, I would like the inestimable privilege of your help in going ashore. Tomorrow, in Bali, the Balinese, very ungodly, very ignorant people. Ignorant, Captain English. You worship the Karuga bird, an evil spirit.
Dr. Walks.
I shall free them! Free them from the Karuga bird.
Fainted. Stagg, take the wheel. Wrangell, give me a hand with him. Come on.
His heart's beating, sir.
Why?
He's drunk. Drunk, is he? Oh, blimey.
Well, at last there's something's got the best of that blasted Dutchman.
The next morning, we lay off the shallow water of Julalong. As I leaned across the deck's railing, looking gratefully at the white coastline of the island that was to relieve my ship of its unwelcome passenger, waiting impatiently for the arrival of the government launch, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I glanced backward into the Dutchman's face. An impersonal smile buttered his lips.
Captain English, sir, I beg a word with you.
Surely, Mr. Walks, you're not so poor in words that you need to beg one.
I would buy it if I could, sir.
Oh, no need. If it's farewell, you're welcome to it. Gladly.
Captain English, I am a miserable and a repentant sinner. The devil has used me for his own ends. If you can find it in your heart to forgive and forget, Captain English, I am sure we can come to an equitable arrangement.
Your conduct is no concern of mine, Dr. Walks.
Precisely. You weren't paid to watch me, but If you're agreeable, I should now like to make my welfare your business. Here's $200 in the currency of God's own country.
Well, what's this for?
I'm hiring one of your lifeboats for the brief period of a half hour. Get ashore.
Well, it seems you're not yourself yet, Dr. Walks. Perhaps I'd better hold your money until you're master of it.
I knew I could rely on your discretion. Now for the lifeboat.
Very well, sir. As soon as the port authorities have come on board.
No. Now.
I'm afraid that's impossible.
Good Lord, man, that's what I'm paying you for. If you think I want to wait on your deck until my papers are inspected, do I have to explain?
I understand you well enough, sir. I prefer not to know the details. I'm as anxious as you to have you off my ship. But if you double the bribe, I wouldn't draw a line to save you.
Must I swim for it?
I wouldn't if I were you. That's the government launch now. See? Over there on the starboard side.
Ahoy there! Aboard the roundabout! And you make it?
There's still time. Now listen, man. It's your last chance. Yours as well as mine. Listen to me. Get me off this boat, or take the consequences. I swear it. You ransack the four corners of the globe, looking for this minute. Don't let it slip through your fingers. There's eternity in it.
A moment later, the authorities came on board.
Captain English.
Welcome, sir.
Oh, are you the captain?
I am.
I am Ben Matzes, Chief Inspector of the Port of Beulah.
A pleasure, sir. We've anticipated your arrival with impatience. We are anxious to clear port as soon as we can.
So I look over your papers. Bills of lading, cotton goods, manifest. Thank you, Captain. Oh, what is this? The declaration. A passenger? You say here is a passenger?
As you see.
But what is this passenger doing on your ship? Here is not room for passengers, no?
A missionary. Will you examine his papers, please?
A missionary? You are sure?
Yes.
So? Very peculiar.
I see nothing peculiar about that.
But, Captain, there is not the possibility for a missionary here at Bali.
What's that?
We are not permitting a missionary here for many, many years. All the world knows this.
Well, I didn't know it, sir. I wouldn't have carried him if I had.
I can believe you, Captain. There. Well, perhaps now we could see this passenger?
Of course. Mr. Stagg. Yes, sir? Ask Dr. Walks to step to the side of the deck.
Yes. He is called Walks, this man?
Yes.
Walks, eh?
Dr. Walks. I'm here, Ben Matzes.
Glad to meet you, sir.
Dr. Walks, eh?
Yes, Dr. Walks.
This morning I wake, the birds sing, the sun is shining. Why is no volcanic eruption warning me that you are coming, Dr. Walks?
My good sir, I am the eruption.
One moment. I don't understand. You mean you know this man?
Certainly I am knowing this man, your missionary. I am knowing him very well.
Yes.
Oh, he is such a clever man.
Yes.
How is it possible you are coming as a clergyman here to Bali? For so wrong.
But what is
My
it?
dear sir, this was the only suit that would fit me. I had no time for shopping.
You're not making clothes big enough to fit you, eh?
No.
No, nor countries either.
Here's my passport, sir.
A passport? This is a forgery. A clever forgery. What a pity. You have such a great talent, Mr. Walker.
Yes, that's true.
Such a good copy, this passport. It should be framed.
Thank you, sir. If it's that good, I should like it returned for future use. Thank you.
Such a talent. You could have been a Van Eyck, a Van Ostad, a Rembrandt van Rijn. If only you had been so lucky to be born a Dutchman.
What's that? What? He's not Dutch?
No, this gentleman is not a Dutchman. He is not a missionary. He is not even his own name.
What is he?
Here is an international figure, Captain. Everywhere he goes, he's making trouble. He's making trouble first in the West and now in the East. You have a famous man on your boat.
Oh, please be clear, sir. What does he do? What has he done?
Always he is making trouble with the natives. Last year, 5,000 coolies were following him from the cotton mills in Wuzhou, not 2 hours from Shanghai.
6,000 coolies, sir.
Yeah, 6,000, I beg your pardon. And in Cebu, he was leading the Filipinos in a trouble but was nearly closing the port.
It closed the port.
It closed the port, he knows. Now they have cabled us from Shanghai. He is wanted there by the police, so now he is hoping he is landing here in Bali. But we are being too smart for him.
But what's his name? What's his country? What am I to do with him?
He has many names, but he has no country. Somebody is knowing, of course, but nobody is telling. The Dutch East Indies are close to him. I do not know where is not close to such a man. I doubt you will lose him. Ever.
But to whom does he belong, Herr Van Metzis? I refuse to be burdened with him.
You have no choice. Captain, I am sorry for you. Here he is on this ship. He belongs to you.
Would you turn me into a Flying Dutchman, sir?
A Flying Dutchman, that's right. That's what you are. You will sail from now until eternity.
Yes.
A Flying Dutchman.
A Flying Dutchman.
Listening to a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in The Passenger to Bali by Ellis St. Joseph. The play will continue in just a moment. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. We continue now with The Passenger to Bali by Ellis St. Joseph, starring Orson Welles in the role of Raube Walks.
After Bali, the first 7 days were a week of doomsdays. The news of our Flying Dutchman flew like a screaming gull before our masts. In Makassar, Banjarmasin, Rembang, Batavia, Koba, Pekan, Singapore, Bangkok, the answers were all the same.
Capitan, you cannot land him here. We don't want him. We won't have him. We want none of him. We know him. He's a pest, a plague, this man. We don't want him here.
This port is closed from its wharf. Moreover, so long as he is on your ship, the port is closed to your ship.
You can't land him here.
You can't land him.
You can't. Not here.
Not here.
Not here.
Not here.
No, not here.
Not here. Not here.
Mr. Walks never attempted to escape, although heaven knows we gave him every opportunity. One day, we opened his 2 packing cases, which he had said were loaded with Bibles. One was filled with gin, the other with empty bottles. It is impossible to say when or how, but slowly, imperceptibly, our passenger came to take possession of the ship and all its crew. The native crew fell more and more deeply under his spell. I was their captain in name. He, in fact. Also, inevitably, as he filled the officers' minds, he ousted all other thoughts until he possessed them by their very hatred of him. We felt the restrictions of our forced association far more than he. We were his prisoners, not he ours. And when, at Mr. Spragg's suggestion, a concerted plan was attempted to put Walks into Coventry at mealtime, Walks, without opening his mouth, except to eat or closing it, except to smile, silenced the entire company. He all but emptied our stores with his huge appetite. At last, sacrificing all hope of profit, all hope of everything but emptying our ship of that loathsome passenger, we set our course west under ballast to Shanghai. Shanghai, where he was wanted by the police. Where we took him on, there we would finally put him off. I felt that the ship would rise 5 feet out of the water once relieved of the Dutchman's weight. We steamed up the Yangtze River early one morning and anchored off Shanghai. The port officials informed us that the British consul was to favor us with a personal visit. It was noon before he came aboard.
Captain English, he's here.
Mr. Chisholm, the consul?
Coming aboard, sir, with his portfolio under his arm like he was going to Geneva, and a monocle in his eye like the rising sun, but never sets on the British Empire.
Ah, Mr. Chisholm, I'm Captain English.
Oh, yes. It's so nice to meet you.
If you'll excuse us, Mr. Wrangler, I'd like to...
Yes, sir.
I'm very grateful to you, sir, to take so much trouble to come down personally to...
No, not at all, my dear man. The Chinese port authorities informed me of your predicament and asked me to handle it in my own manner.
Oh, so much the better for all of us.
According to their specific instructions.
Why, I don't understand.
My dear fellow, don't try. It's diplomacy. Only the stupid try to understand diplomacy, and they spoil the game for the rest of us. It's like playing blind man's buff with a really blind man, and that makes it too macabre. I say, won't you ask me to sit down?
Oh, please.
Thank you. I say there's a cold draft on my back. Would you mind closing the door?
A draft? What, in this heat?
Diplomacy, dear boy. A diplomatic way of suggesting we may be overheard.
Oh, and now, Mr. Chisholm.
Oh, yes. Where were we?
We hadn't begun.
To be sure, you're Flying Dutchman.
Yes, I'm awaiting your verdict.
Incredible man. Incredible situation.
Unendurable, sir.
Well, of course, you can't land him here. Shanghai doesn't want him. You'd better take him somewhere else.
What did you say?
Your passenger, what's his name? Mr. Walks. The men's a bounder, you know. Shanghai has its quota of bounders.
But I understood Shanghai wants him. The police are looking for him.
They were. They aren't now.
But how can that be?
Inevitable, my dear fellow. It's the philosophy of the flea. If you have them, you hunt them. If you don't, you don't go looking for them.
Did the Chinese tell you to say that?
The thought is theirs. The phrase is mine.
Good heavens, but how can they refuse him if he's broken their laws?
Mr. Walks would certainly be arrested if he sets foot on land, but he will not be given the opportunity. This saves the Chinese government a complicated legal procedure which might prove embarrassing.
And what of my embarrassment?
And likewise dispenses with the trouble and expense of providing for him.
And what of my trouble? What of my expense?
Really, my dear man, my heart bleeds for you, of course. It has its humorous aspect.
What's that you say?
If one suspends one's emotions and thinks.
Humor, Mr. Chisholm. All very well for you, but what of me? I'm the butt of the joke.
Really, my friend.
A man is on my boat and I can't get rid of him. No port will accept him. Worse than that, no port will receive us while he's on board. They've turned him into a Flying Dutchman, and they've turned us into a phantom ship. My crew is not allowed to land, not even to desert. You realize what that is? A sentence of death. Wholesale slaughter. Oh, what have I done to deserve this?
You accepted him.
Well, is there nothing to be done with him? Absolutely nothing.
I'm afraid that your famous passenger is a man without a country. I'm helpless in the face of that.
Then what can you do for me, Mr. Chisholm? Am I expected to sail him around the world all the rest of my days?
It looks that way, doesn't it?
I'll scuttle the ship first.
Not a bad idea.
Oh, I'd hope that at least you, Mr. Chisholm, at least you...
If I might suggest...
Yes.
Mr. Walks is a child of nature. He relies upon force. You might meet force with force.
Force?
Remember this, my dear Captain. The man you have on your ship carries no passport, is claimed by no country. Legally, he doesn't exist. As such, no flag protects him. He has no rights, and if he were suddenly to disappear, no questions would be asked. Do you follow me?
Yes.
If I were in your shoes, Captain, I'd go for a walk with him on some dark night, around the deck and talk. You know, talk. Keep on talking to him until you come to the railing's end. And then...
But that's murder.
I fail to see how you can murder a man who doesn't exist.
He does exist. It's what none of you seem to realize. He's a man, the same as you and I.
He might commit suicide, you know. Well, I must leave now. I shall anticipate a bit and report that your passenger does not exist. I found no one on the boat that remotely resembles Mr. Walk.
Am I a ghost, gentlemen?
He'd moved in so quickly that we'd not noticed his coming.
Is this the English consul? The august representative of Great Britain?
As I was saying, Captain, I shall report that there is no such person as Mr. Walk. Your passenger doesn't exist. Nevertheless, I must take the proper precautions. I shall report that I found plague on board. Cholera, I think.
Would you turn me into a disease?
No, a bubonic would be better. Your ship will be placed in quarantine. Needless to say, no one will be allowed on nor off, and you will depart as soon as possible.
Shall I swing a bell and shout, unclean, unclean?
China can control bubonic, but she has no antidote for Mr. Walk.
You are quite clear, Mr. Chisholm.
Good day, my dear Captain.
No, you don't, Mr. Chisholm. I'm big enough to fill this doorway. I wouldn't try to pass if I were you. I'm a catching disease. I warn you. The captain and the crew have caught me, and I'm fatal to them. Try to pass me, and you'll catch it yourself. You see, Mr. Chisholm, when I'm in your way, you've got to take notice of me. By heaven, I do exist, after all. That's all, sir. You may leave, with my permission. Well, Captain English, we are as we were.
No, Dr. Walk.
No, how so? Shanghai, your last chance to lose me. It's out. I'm yours.
No.
No?
I must take Mr. Chisholm's advice.
Oh, if he suggested one more port, still another. Is there such a place, such a land on earth?
Have no doubt. They will accept you there.
Will they? I should hardly have thought it possible. Even if I were to die, I doubt if you would lose me. You'd probably carry me back and forth between heaven and hell.
Mr. Walks was still on board when the roundabout weighed anchor and passed with the river out to sea. At night, the ship began to roll. The barometer fell. We headed the ship into the wind. I was unable to stay in the wheelhouse, alone with my thoughts. Mr. Chisholm's whisper was blowing like a foghorn through my brain, urging me. I fled to the deck in the welcome company of my two mates. Mr. Wrangle.
Yes, sir.
Report to the wheelhouse. Take the wheel yourself, and don't let it out of your hands.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Wrangle.
Yes, sir.
If the wheel starts to kick up, call me. We may need to laxa.
Yes, sir.
Look bad, sir. Well, we're in typhoon waters, Mr. Stagg. Bad, sir. Well, we're in typhoon waters, Mr. Stagg.
But it's past the season, ain't it?
A shark's tail is more dangerous than its tooth. I don't like the look of that hammered water or those oily clouds on the horizon.
Captain, I've been thinking a good deal these last 2 days about, you know, this situation of ours, about Walks. Now, I got an idea.
What is it?
I don't know how to say it. Well, why not? What's to keep us from giving him a light boat and some food and setting him adrift?
After death.
But we wouldn't be there to see it, would we?
Oh, no, that's impossible. It's inhuman.
Well, I suppose you'd sooner see him drowned. Kinder, eh?
Drowned?
Why not, sir? It's going to be a dark night, isn't it? The man fell overboard tonight.
Who told you to say that?
Why, nobody, sir. Stands to reason.
It's beyond reason.
Listen, sir. We can't carry him from now until the day of judgment. If he were on land, the law would do it for us. You're the Lord, see?
I refuse to discuss.
Think of him, sir. You think it'll be pleasant for him to spend the rest of his life at sea? Never to put foot on land? Have you thought of that?
I've thought of it. I don't want to think.
He's a Jonah, I tell you. Should be thrown to the whales. It isn't safe to have him on board.
Thanks. We're going to the engine. Full speed ahead. Fire the boilers to stop steam. Keep her headed into the wind. Yes, sir. Batten down the hatches. Call all men on deck. Sit down in the engine room. Secure everything. I'll see to the wheel. Yes.
Dirty weather, eh, Captain?
What?
Why are you surprised? Were you thinking of me? Or were you conspiring with the wind and the waves?
What do you want? I told you before, you're not allowed in the wheelhouse.
Never?
Never.
I wish to speak with you.
I have nothing to say to you.
But I insist. Shall we take a turn about the deck? You're out.
Very well. I'll be brief. The storm comes.
Yes, dark nights to say, but perhaps we won't notice it if we talk, you know. Talk. Keep on talking. You prefer to stop.
No, let's be going.
Railings in. Oh, but this is an excellent place. Chance has guided us. Pure accident. The railings in.
I must go onto the bridge, Dr. Walk.
Tell me, sir. Why do you hate me?
What?
This is no time for equivocation. If you must spare me that. Give me the reason, one good reason why you hate me.
You tricked me into accepting you on this boat, knowing very well what would happen if you were caught.
But your animosity began long before you knew me for the villain I am.
You had a demoralizing influence on the whole crew.
Before that, sir, it began before that.
Your ideas.
Captain English, think back. Certainly it began before I attempted to corrupt you with my ideas.
It began?
Yes?
The night I picked you up off the wharf. I suffered a physical revulsion the moment I laid eyes on you. I found my reasons later. That night, Mr. Walk, I disliked you without cause.
Thank you. You disliked me before you knew anything about me. And you must have disliked me for some reason. Some reason within yourself, Captain. Perhaps you do right to blame me for making you conscious of it.
Mr. Walk, I must go to the bridge.
Wait a minute! You hold me responsibility for the undesired linking of our lives. That's no responsibility. It's yours to blame, not I. You and the civilized world, your world. They bound me to you.
Let me go. Let go my arm.
But civilization is rotten, Captain, because its origin is fear. The vacuum that nature abhors, like the center of this hurricane, upon which the four winds of the earth are converging.
I must get to the bridge. Let me go, Mr. Walk.
Listen to me! Your society is torturing. For 2,000 years, the strong have been sacrificed to the weak. And with what result? To imprison the strong, the weak have imprisoned themselves. The wheel, Captain English, the wheel! That's why you abominate me, Captain, because I destroyed your illusion of freedom and betrayed you to yourself. I am the opposition. The wheel, Captain English, help! Now, Captain English, I know what the British Council and your Mr. Stagg told you to do. Well, here we are at the railings end. Why don't you do it?
Mr. Walk.
If our positions were reversed, Captain, do you think I'd hesitate for a minute? I'd move quietly. I'd take a sudden step forward.
By heaven, I will. You...
You're not strong enough. This ship is mine now. Mine. I'll never leave it. Get up! Give you back your life. You would have died with your conscience. You would never have survived me.
The wheel, Captain! The wheel! Rope! The wheel's loose! The wheels! You get size! The wheel!
He managed, I don't know how, to gain the wheelhouse. flash of lightning showed the ocean pouring in through the broken portholes. Another flash, and we saw the whirring wheel, a huge wooden wheel in blurred outline, spinning. The Randall lay in the corner, crumpled in unnatural angles as the wheel had thrown him. He was dead. His body bore mute witness to the wheel's horrible force. It would chop our hands off if we touched it. It was overwhelming, inexorable. It had a diabolical mind of its own, intent upon our destruction, and we danced about it like idiots. The ship was shrieking in a death agony. Her life was a matter of moments. With an uncontrollable rudder, she would drive herself down into the deep. The great waves struck the walls and broke in the door and descended upon us. As the ship raised her shoulders above the sea and the water washed out through the whirring wheel, we saw looming in the doorway of the wheelhouse an immense figure, with the salt water running down him, dripping from his face and fingers. Mr. Walks might have risen from the sea itself.
Out of the way!
Mr. Walks, you can't stop that wheel!
And I...
Annie, you man! It'll kill you!
I'm not afraid of it! I'll stop it if I have to smash it!
Walks, he's got it! He's got the wheel on his back.
I have. I've got the ocean. The whole ocean on my back.
Can you hold it? Tag, grab the wheel. Help him. Here, let me get at it too.
Good.
Rope. There's rope coming. Do you hear? Get it.
My collar. Over my collar. That's better.
We can hold it. Till the
I can hold it. Gentlemen, I doubt if it will be necessary.
What's that? What's that you say?
We're holding nothing. The ship's rudder just snapped.
Forasmuch as it has pleased Almighty God of His great mercy to take unto Himself the soul of our dear brother Angus Randall, here departed, we therefore commit his body to the deep, to be turned into corruption, looking for the resurrection of the body when the sea shall give up her dead, and the life of the world to come to our Lord Jesus Christ, who at his coming shall change our vile body, that it may be like his glorious body, according to the mighty working whereby he is able to subdue all things to himself. Amen. Next morning, we took toll of the havoc. Through heaving silvery water and swirling fog, the roundabout drifted aimlessly. Lifting 30 degrees to starboard, the ship was a corpse, floating, face upward, wrecked and mangled beyond all recognition. All but one lifeboat was stove in or gone. 4 Kanaka boys had been washed overboard. Others had broken limbs. None of us was without a bruise of one kind or another. I took our bearings. We were 200 miles off the coast of China. We had no wireless. And the roundabout, past control or repair, might sink before she was sighted by another vessel. After a brief consultation with Mr. Stagg, I decided to abandon ship. And your mind is made up, Captain? Yes, Mr. Stagg. Are all men on deck? Yes, sir. And then who has been ringing the ship's bell?
Ghost!
No, sir.
A ghost bell. On a ghost ship.
Flat out, Walk. Rope is broken, Captain. Bell's ringing by herself. It's the swaying that does it.
This is the Flying Dutchman, demon vessel. We drift rudderless in the fog in all directions, and to no port. Let the spectre bell boom its warning to all ships. Beware!
These Dutchmen. Been at it ever since last night.
Let Mr. Walks talk. Let the bell toll. There's no time for either of them. Men, we're abandoning ship. Get what belongings you have, nothing heavy. We're taking to the one lifeboat left.
Children, first!
2, go to my cabin. You'll find the log there, my sextant. Bring them here.
Captain, lifeboat leaks pretty badly.
You'll do with bailing.
You have to do.
Be sure there's something to bail her on board.
Yes, sir. I'll get it myself.
Horse! Captain, ride around the deck and give your orders on horseback.
What's that? What are you talking about?
The roundabout is no more. This is manifold, the vast boat that is the whole world. The mountains are a mast. The nails of her hull are a pivot for the moon. Her cables are the circumference of St. Peter's Dome and extend around the globe.
The ship is sinking, Mr. Walks. I've more to do than listen to fairy tales.
Fairy tales is more truthful than the use of force.
Sue, go get provisions and water ready.
I
Captain.
tell you, this is manifold, Captain Manifold. Look about you. Her lower masts are so high that a boy becomes a gray-headed man before he reaches the buttock shroud. It takes 100 years to tack. And when one of her sailors dies, she buries civilization.
I've no time for you, Mr. Walks.
Captain.
Yes, Sue?
Log, 2 sextants here.
I don't need both of these. Put the log and one of them in the boat. Yeah, I'll take the other.
Yes? A long way to row, Captain. Me and Joe who'll pick up a doomsday passenger. Row on, sir, row on. Captain, thou art mine. Captain, I am thine, thou mine, I thine, so long as the sea be brine.
Come on, men. Hurry up. Get your things in the boat. See that they don't overload, Mr. Stagg.
Yes, sir. See, they leave room for me. I'm a man that likes to stretch his legs.
Are you so sure of yourself?
Sure as I am of you, Captain, I can say anything, do anything. And it wouldn't make any difference.
I suppose you can.
I rely upon your charity, pity, mercy, your holy virtues that are oil for the faulty machineries of justice.
Then it would be just to leave you behind.
You won't. You'll take me with me. You don't dare leave me behind.
How well you know me, Mr. Walks. I suppose you even rely upon my gratitude.
Gratitude for what?
You saved the ship last night.
Gratitude, I saved you last night as a soldier infested by lice might crouch beneath cannon fire and thus rescue himself and them from a common death. I gave you no thought.
I see.
Captain, better make it fast, sir.
How's she below, Stagg?
Water up her boiler, sir.
All right, Stagg, we're ready. Give the order to abandon ship.
Right. Abandon ship! All right, take it easy there. Don't foul.
Careful, men. Watch it. One at a time.
Captain, this time I obey your order gladly.
It wasn't meant for you. Mr. Walks, you are not going.
What's that?
You always wanted my ship. I'm giving her to you. She's yours.
I'm not going!
Now you're the captain. I needn't remind you of a captain's duty to stay with his ship when...
You leave me on the roundabout?
He may float for a week or an hour. You'll be safe for a while, and there'll be food enough even for you. I wish you a pleasant journey, wherever you're going.
I'll see you rot first.
The one consideration that might have made me take you was my gratitude for what you did last night. But your explanation has made things clear. Ready, Mr. Stagg?
Yes, sir.
Into the lifeboats, men!
Don't listen to him, sir.
Well,
Captain, I have no excuse. I'm the lowest of the low. My home is deeper than the grave, deeper than the sea. You're right to desert me. It's only justice.
then there's nothing more to say.
Now stay. The ship won't sink while a dying man repents. I am evil. Vile. I deserve to drown, and yet... Have you no pity, Captain? No charity? No mercy?
Oil, you called it.
Oh, I was drunk.
You still are.
I had a mother.
I don't believe it.
I don't ask to be excused, only to be forgiven.
I forgive you, Mr. Walks, and forget you. Into the boat, men!
Take your time now. Take your time now.
Goodbye, Mr. Walks.
Not so soon! Don't forget I'm your shadow, you doppelganger. You doomsday passenger.
Mr. Walks, I warn you,
The end of your world, Captain, the beginning of mine. You stay on the roundabout. I'll take the lifeboat.
Look out, Captain.
Mr. Walks, stand back.
Your voice isn't loud enough for me to hear.
Stay where you are. Now, if I shout through the muzzle of this gun, you may hear the whisper.
I hear you very well now.
It's a pity that to end this way, I would move heaven and earth.
Heaven and earth will stay where they are, sir. And so will I.
Ready to lower the boat, sir.
I'm coming, Mr. Stagg. My sexton, Mr. Walks. You'll need it.
Not I. I'll shoot the sun and stars with more than a sextant before I die. Get along, sir, and whistle for the wind. We'll be meeting soon again. Lower away! Lower away!
off with no other sound than the movement of our oars. Walks followed us around the deck and finally lifted his hand and waved. We moved apart as the loom of the great hull grew shadowy, only a little heavier and darker than the enveloping whiteness. His colossal figure, like a ghostly apparition, appeared to dwarf the vessel. The roundabout rose gradually out of the black and silver water and heaved too in midair as though awaiting a message. Then the hulk dilated in the fog and faded on the horizon like sea mist in the morning sun. We could see nothing. Our own strange faces dimly in the milky light.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations have presented the Mercury Theater on the Air in its 19th broadcast of dramatized great narratives. The story was A Passenger to Bali by Ellis St. Joseph. The adaptation for radio was made by the author himself, and Orson Welles directed the entire production. In the cast tonight were Captain English, played by George Coulouris, Mr. Stagg, Frank Reddick, Mr. Wrangle, Eustace Wyatt, Ben Mattis, Ray Collins, Mr. Chisholm, Alfred Shirley, and Mr. Walks, Orson Welles. The orchestra was directed by Bernard Herrmann, and Davidson Taylor supervised the production for CBS. Your announcer is Dan Seymour. Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air will bring to life a masterpiece of humor, Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Thank you for listening to HOJO Radio. We'll be back again very soon.